Hello and welcome back to RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. It's been a while, been close to 3 months since we brought you this series, but it is back with an entirely new format. It's the Espeed Contender Series Dark Matter Design Season Opener 300-miler live from Daytona International Speedway. Randolph Cheneth, Jake Blackhall, as well as Hugo Louis, bringing you all the action in this one all season long. And Jake, it's a new format, a new season. I think everyone's excited.
Everything. I'm excited, getting ready for this one. It's a full season this year, all year long for the Raven Graphics and Espeed Contender Series, and straight away starting with the Daytona 300 here at Daytona. And interesting names coming back to the series, Randy. Interesting names in the series now as rookies. I think it's going to be a great race here today. And it's going to make for definitely a wild one. I've heard some word from obviously the clashes and the duels, and there was some crazy racing going on.
Yeah, I've heard as well from some drivers that they weren't overly enthused with some of the things that happened in those couple races. A lot of calamity and not a lot of cars finishing those races. But we have a starting lineup coming at you in just a moment, as the music is intriguingly cutting in and out, but that doesn't matter. Cars are getting ready to roll off on towards the racetrack. Let's go down the 38 car field that's going to be opening up the series tonight. So the grids for these were sorted out prior to this. Qualifying, of course, made up the first 2 spots, and then they did 2 duels that sorted out second through on the inside row and third through on the inside row and fourth through on the outside row. So let's go down. Scotty Reinshield and Sean Powell, they're going to be on that front row, the fastest in qualifying, so they get those couple of spots. Travis Townsend returns with Marshall Berry on the outside of row number 2. Doug Lemons and Brandon Holder, 2 seasoned veterans, on row number 3, with Everett Lane and Perry Snelson on row 4. Brad Neer and Jason Seidlove, they make up row 5, with Ryan Lang and William Toney on row 6. Brad Patterson and Sean Molczyk, they make up row 7, with Keith Stewart and Timmy Logwood Jr. on row number 8. Paul Bliss and James Torrey on row 9, with Glenn Jamieson and Doc Stout rounding out your top 20. Brent Keith and Aaron Ames make up row number 11, with Matt Kingsbury and Adam Jocelyn row 12. Sean Ryan and Ed Zaghetti on row number 13. Timothy McQueen and Jason Perry on row 14. Burt Wilson and Bobby Everhart row 15. Tyler Hayes and Nate Bowden row 16. James Hickson and Tim Marlowe row number 17. Frank Amuglia and John Berga on row number 18, with Christian Joyce and Malik Ray rounding out the 38 car field. It's a long championship now for the 2018 Espeed Contender Series. 35 rounds are on the schedule. These guys work themselves off towards the front straightaway. Pace car ducks to the safety of pit road, and we are green in the Dark Matter Designs 300 in the Espeed Contender Series. Scotty Reinshield is going to lead them all the way down in towards corner number 1 for the first time, with Sean Powell, Travis Townsend, and Marshall Berry all being aggressive behind. We are green in the Espeed Contender Series in 2018.
Green and mean and ready to go. It's going to be a long season already. Travis Townsend, where else would he be? Up the front, pushing Scotty to the front right now, and they're going to be pretty much clear of that high side right now. Sean Powell did not get a good restart in that 41 truck. Also, for people who are coming back to the series, a lot of people have changed numbers, so it's going to be a whole new series for Randy and I to get our heads around in the first race.
A lot of new names, and unfortunately a lot of names that are difficult to pronounce, such as the guy who looks keen on leading lap number 1 here on the series. And now into the tri-oval, or will that 41 machine, actually I take that back, will the 83 machine of Travis Townsend take that on her way? No. Lap number 1 going to be led by Scotty Reinshield. So 120 laps is on the docket tonight. There's a big run coming from the top side of the racetrack. Sean Powell getting a big shove from that top groove, getting pushed by Marshall Berry. So a couple of new names up top. Jake really being strong, and a new name leading the race here thus far. New guys coming out showing they want to play hard.
Yeah, new guys showing what they can do, and already Marshall Berry with American Motorsports. That's a good team to get amongst. Right now he's got his teammate Brandon Holder moved away. I think it was from the 31 last season, now running in the 5 truck, sitting right behind. So that's a little bit more coordinated for American Motorsports. 05, 5, 04, and 4 for that team, which will be good and strong this season. Doug Lemon still on that inside right now, trying to see what he can do in that 3rd spot. A little bit back from Travis Townsend, who's all over the back of Scotty Ryanchild right out in front.
You guys continue to lead the way out here in front as we expect this Daytona 120 lap race. Expect a lot of green flag racing and expect a lot of calm stuff until we get up to about 80 or so laps to go here, Jake. That's really been the big thing in these plate races, in this championship. We know that there's been a lot of calamity in the duels, so keep in mind there's about 38 cars in this field. About half of them would have partaken in each duel, and from what I've heard, only about 5 or 6 cars finished each one. So hopefully these guys in the season opener for the big race can be patient and get themselves to the end. That said, that upper groove looks keen on moving forward. In the 41 car of Sean Powell, he wants to know the head and lead a lap here, and he'll do so. He takes it by 100th at the stripe.
Good move from that high side groove at the moment. The 2 behind him, those 2 American Motorsports trucks, they're the ones that you want to have behind you at these early stages. We know they can push to the front. They've done it before. Right now, sitting on that high side, but Scotty Ryanchild sitting inside on that inside line with Travis Townsend. I'm surprised that Townsend hasn't really tried to push him even further out in front. So Sean Powell on that high side in the 41 truck right now, he's got the advantage, getting a good shove from Marshall Berry in that 2nd spot out there, and nothing they can do though through the middle of the corner. Scotty Ryanchild in that 27 moving back to the front.
So everyone trying to move their way back up front, as I don't think Scotty's going to be able to lead this lap either. I think the 41 knows the head up top, and indeed he's going to lead another lap, this time by 0.003 of a second, so the margin comes down just a little bit further. So the new rookies that we have coming into this series, Sean Mulsick, Malik Ray, Matt Kingsbury, Scotty Ryanchild, Sean Powell. You see those 2 out in front. John Verga, Jason Perry, Tyler Hayes, and Marshall Berry. So a lot of known names in that quote-unquote rookie list there, Jake. I think Malik Ray is a name that a lot of people will be familiar with. Matt Kingsbury is one as well. And, well, 2 of the rookies are currently out in front leading this thing.
Yeah, 2 rookies out in front, and I wouldn't really class a couple of those guys rookies. We know who they are. They're going to be up the front, especially come later on in this season, once they get familiar with the drivers and the teams that are already familiar with in this series. That high side, though, got a little bit of a break between Marshall Berry and Brandon Holder, who sort of lost about a truck length there. They actually lost a lot of the field. Right now, that rest of the field just starting to close back up. That's led by what looks to be William Tony, the GBI driver right now, trying to close up to the back of Timmy Logwood Jr., who is now in the 4, trying to catch this main group.
Yeah, you're pretty much right. All these numbers are going to throw us for a loop as Logwood's moved over for the 4, taking that number from Chris Britt. A handful of other drivers have jumped some numbers around. Aaron Ames is now in the 3, interestingly enough. Still some people in the numbers that you will, of course, love and remember. James Torrey, he's still out there in the 2. Everett F. Lane, he's still in the 24. And I'm going to keep an eye, Jake, on that number 24 machine all day, because the NASCAR iRacing Series Daytona 500 on Sunday, Everett was part of the lead group pretty much the entire 500 miles of that event. I think that 24 car is going to be a force to be reckoned with in this one, and especially considering the top side in the truck seems a bit more viable than it did in the Cup cars. I think that 24, as long as he doesn't get caught up in any issues, he's going to be strong. Keep in mind, he won this race, if my memory serves me right, just a season ago.
Yeah, he's won this race numerous times before in terms of just being competitive out the front. He could have won more plate races last season, just wasn't able to get it. He has won before. I think he also has won a preseason race. So Everett F. Lane knows how to get that truck into victory lane. That inside line, though, now sort of formed up to a good solid 20-odd trucks. That high side, though, only got the 4 in it, keeping strong on that outside. Ryan Lang's now the 4th truck in line in the 31, and it looks like as well the 16 truck has moved up the 24 that we were just talking about. Everett F. Lane both going to this top sideline.
The 41 machine is Sean Powell. He got a big push from another rookie of Marshall Berry. So right now it's rookies 1, 2, 3 controlling this field, and they're quickly followed by a couple of very experienced names of Brandon Holder as well as Travis Townsend. Doug Lemon's up in this pack as well. But the rookies are saying we're going to come out, we're going to fight hard in the season opener. As Marshall Berry now, he's going to try to nose ahead to the lead of this 41 car.
A little bit of a wiggle coming off of turn 4 that time. I think with Brandon Holder in the 5, still getting used to that number on the side of his car. Definitely different. The 27, Scotty Reinshield, trying to push up a little bit, use a little bit of that side draft to push Sean Power out in front. But these two America Motorsports trucks are going to be strong on that high side. Looks like they're already a little bit of nose ahead through the middle of 1 and 2 this time round. Let's see if they can get a good shove going down the backstretch to maybe clear themselves. But I don't think the 05 of Marshall Berry will even think about dropping down like Sean Power did. He would rather stick with his teammate right now, and that's what he's going to do on the high side.
Let's see if he opts to do so. A lot of times, drivers say, you know what, I want to lead this thing at Daytona. I will take that bottom groove anytime I can get there. But Marshall not getting a good push from his teammate. A little bit of bobbing and weaving coming off corner number 4. Welcome back here to RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. Sorry about that, guys, as we're trying to chase tech issues, but a big incident here, Jake, that brought us under yellow on lap number 16. We will not, unfortunately, be able to get you guys a replay of this, but Ryan Lang as well as Malik Ray, they're pushing up top trying to make it 3 wide, and well, Ryan pretty much just drove his way into the wall and I think caused a big pileup is the way I see it.
Yeah, it didn't really happen, especially going through the trial ball right there for Ryan Lang. That door shut pretty quickly and caused a massive incident. There are a lot of trucks that were involved. Travis Townsend, one of the notables, got a lot of damage to his truck. He was hard into the outside wall, got cooked from Malik Ray and Ryan Lang as they moved down. Pit stops though, first of the day done, and Everett F. Lane coming out pretty much first off that win off pit road. Brandon Holder in P2, and the 44, I think that's Jason Sizoff, still it is, staying out and gonna maybe lead some laps.
So a couple guys opting to stay out, and that's an interesting strategy call considering the length of this race. Now, expect fuel mileage probably be what, somewhere around 40 to 45 laps, I would suspect, Jake, because actually it's going to be one car ducking back down on towards pit road. So the 44 Sizelove opting he wants to go back to the back of the field. Maybe, I don't know if he missed the box or what the deal is, but he now heads down pit lane. It's going to be Everett Lane who brings us to the lead back to green.
Yeah, it's going to be the leader, Everett F. Lane, and we know how quick that 24 truck can be, and especially now that he's out in front. Well, we were sort of away there. Brandon Holder and Marshall Berry both got down to the low line, so that's why those two have now swapped positions. Berry first got down to that inside line, then Holder followed him down a lap or 2 later, and then obviously the incident kicked off. But at the moment, Edward Szigeti, a lot of damage to that 58 truck. He's on pit road. Perry, Townsend, McQueen, Kingsbury, as well as Malik Ray, they are both more than 1 lap down. Keith Stewart as well is 1 lap down at the moment with some damage to the back of that 16 truck. So a lot of notables in that sort of list there, Randy, that are pretty much out of this one very early. Only 20 laps scored of 120.
Yeah, a lot of notables really, getting out of that one, like you said. Keith Stewart a lap down, Malik Ray a lap down, Matt Kingsbury a lap down, and he was, did he just spin? Or he just came to a stop for some reason near pit entry, and he was stopped there for a pretty long time. Not sure what the issue for the 21 is, but Tim McQueen, Travis Townsend, Jason Perry, Ed Szigeti, and Sean Mulchick, like you said, a lot of notable names. Well, actually, you take that back. Sean didn't actually take the green, so he's 17 some odd laps down. But you're right, a lot of big names taken out in that one.
Yeah, a lot of big names, and looking at it now, looking at the schedule as well, we're going to bring it up as Hugo brings it up as well in the background. It's a long one, Randy, and we're going to be in it for the long haul. Pretty much 35 races for the season, and we kick it all off here at Daytona, and then it's just onwards and upwards from here.
A long championship in this series. Normally we'd see these guys run 2 different seasons over the course of the year. That'd be somewhere in the realm of about 40 events, but they decided because, well, if we're already running that many races, we actually run slightly less to just run a full length schedule, so we're just going to link it up and run one big long championship. And, well, these guys doing whatever they can to work themselves over the course of this one. Pace car lights are now out, so 1 to go, but trying to survive deep into that championship, Jake. Trying to keep the mental. It's going to take a lot of mental toughness, knowing that because there's so many races in this championship, you need to start thinking about October and November when it comes to this thing, and not just like basically the middle of summer, which it was for these guys last year.
Yeah, it's not like a matter of 10 races and then you got to start thinking about chase. It's how many races I'm looking down at now. It's 25 races before we even get into the chase. So that's a lot of races that these guys are going to be thinking out. It's pretty much an entire schedule that they've used to run, plus a couple of races added on that they've got to think about. So Daytona, Atlanta next week, then Vegas. So starting off with the notables, and then obviously Rockingham, which that track I drove it the other week in an Xfinity car. It's bumpy. And I haven't realized how bumpy that track is, and it's been a while since I've driven there. So that's going to be an interesting one straight away early in the season as well. And obviously Daytona already starting it off. It's going to be one that we've got to talk about, because if you get onto the right foot from here on out, you can really start your championship well.
The field's going to be running themselves 2, 3, and 4. Let's see. Let's just take another quick look as cycle through some interesting tracks. Rockingham, like you said, Milwaukee, Daytona Road returns. That's actually a bit of a surprise to me. Also have an Eldora exhibition race mixed in there. Mosport comes back. Gateway, and of course Watkins Glen towards the end. Those are the big sort of curveball tracks. Green flag is going to fly once again here on the Dark Matter Designs 300 here for the Espeed Contender Series, and Everett F. Lane from 7th on the grid. He's going to lead them down into corner number 1 with Brandon Holder up top. Marshall Berry, Brad Patterson, and Scotty Ronchild, they round out your top 5.
It's a little bit loose there from the 42 of Patterson, giving a big shove to Marshall Berry through 1 and 2. Now it's been a while since we've seen the 42 out in front. May have just jinxed you, Brad. I am so sorry. As Marshall Berry moves to the high side, links up with Brandon Holder, and now that big shove coming from the 42 going to push the Everett F. Lane, get him still alongside with the 05, and they're going to go side by side through 1 and 2 with Sean Powell and Scotty Reinshield, the two that were leading, now sitting in 5th and 6th.
These guys getting very, very racy here. These guys stay file through in towards the tribal, the 05 machine. I think he's going to lead this lap. That's going to be Marshall Berry up top, and he's going to get it by a thousandth of a second as they head down back towards 1 and 2. It's the 42 and the 24. Those two, they ain't teammates, but they are hooked up very, very well here, Jake. And 42 of Patterson pushing Everett F. Lane out to a race lead. This reminds me of the old tandem days.
This does remind me of the old tandem days as well. Pretty much got a couple of truck lengths now to the rest of the field. The 27 of Scotty Reinshield trying to see what he can do to sort of bridge that gap, but they just can't do it. These 4 trucks out in front pushing each other hard in the early stages, and it's actually going to make it interesting because they're going to have to watch their temps just a little bit if they keep on this back bumper. The 42 of Patterson's actually dropped off a bit. That's let this field sort of close back up, because right now on that high side, Sean Powell has linked back up with the 27 of Scotty Reinshield. Berry able to lead that lap by 1300ths of a second this time. It's down to the low side goes the 4 truck. That's Timmy Logwood Jr. from American Motorsports. He's going to want to try and link up with those 2 on that high side.
That's going to be the big thing, is trying to get hooked up with your teammates right here, right now. You see those 2 up top, those 3 up top trying to get hooked together, and Marshall Berry going to be getting a big push from Brandon Holder, and he's going to take your race lead at the end of the Daytona Super Stretch 21 car of Scotty Ronchild. He's still working up that top side, and so seeing me here, Jake, is that we have a number of trucks in the back who, I don't know if this is by design or if these guys are struggling, but you have the likes of Aaron Ames, Joslin. What's happening out in front?
A couple of cars got loose and went down to the inside. They've spun. That's actually Paul Bliss. Big wreck going through the tri-oval. There's a lot of trucks getting involved in this one. No caution as of yet. I am unsure as to why there isn't a caution. Paul Bliss got turned up to the top end of the racetrack. Still no caution. A couple of trucks stopped on the racetrack. That was a big one. The 7 got bumper hooked coming off of the final turn, and that was all she wrote. And then they managed to make contact again, and in the front of pit road is bringing the replay of that. That was an interesting one there, Rodney.
That was an interesting. I have to put that on Paul Bliss. I'm not sure what Paul was doing there. That 85 truck, the way he got loose off corner number 4. I mean, we didn't start the initial incident, but what I don't. The only way I can describe it is the 85 truck basically just LePage the field. He just basically tried to pull up, spun himself on the nose of another driver, and just stacked him up behind him. That's like, I don't know who tries to rejoin like that and just tries to drive it up onto the racetrack as hard as they can, as quick as they can, but I don't think there's any other way to say it.
Yeah, definitely. And Bert Wilson went in some bystander there because the 31 gave the shove. That was Ryan Lang who gave the shove to the 7, and that was it. He went down, hit Paul Bliss, and from there it was just Paul Bliss came back up. Unsure as to why, but that was a really bad rejoin. Ultimately, it's cost a lot of drivers as we go back live out in front. American Motorsports guys now sort of teamed up, but not on the high side. Brandon Holder, Timmy Logwood Jr. teamed up on that high side. Marshall Berry now on the low side. Everett Lane gets a big enough shove off of turn 4. He's going to move down as he crosses the stripe, and still under green conditions. We had that big incident. No one brought out the yellow, and now we're only stuck with about 8 odd trucks in this lead pack.
Yeah, it's sort of taken a lot of the trucks away, and looking at it, there's, I think, only about 10 or so that you might even really be competitive anymore. So I don't know what really the deal is, as Everdef Lane continues to lead the way. And now it's one of those situations, Jake, where you need a yellow to stack a lot of this field back up. Granted, a lot of the field has damage now, but when you have this few cars hooked up together, you figure the lead pack only about 8 or so strong, second pack only about 4 strong, and then 13th on back about 6 half dozen or so. It's pretty unlikely that we're going to get a caution with guys running with this few cars around them.
Yeah, now we expect very flat pit stops, and now you got to work your strategy out from here, especially those 2 American Motorsport trucks on the high side. They're going to be pretty much using all the fuel at the moment. The guys about 4th, 5th on back are going to maybe save just a little bit in those race trucks, so they may be able to get an extra lap out of this stint, and that's what you got to think about, trying to make that, manage it, because it's sort of a weird window now. Because they sort of came down around like 20, that was the last time they were on pit road. If they had a caution then, they might have been able to make it the distance on another stop, but now it's sort of just a little bit too much for them to do. So we'll see how they're going to play this, because it's going to be interesting, especially now with the chance that we may not get another caution till a lot later in the day.
Currently working lap number 30 of 120 is who's that taking a little bit of a peek down low. That's the 05 machine. Most notably, Jake, the most important about that wreck is that it came shortly after you mentioned Brad Patterson, and he was not involved. So therefore, the jinx is, I think, in that case, avoided. Not Chris Britt. It's Timmy Longwood Jr. giving the push to the 5 of Brandon Holder down the super stretch. Only 2 cars up top. I honestly think, Jake, in this situation, if I'm the 4 of Longwood Jr. and Holder, there's no real reason for me to get really, really pushy with this pack right now. I honestly think the way you play this is just get to the end of this line and log as many green laps as you can. With the 05 machine, he's going to jump up top and try to lead some laps here. It seems like he wants to be aggressive and get out in front. I honestly think that amount of your competition just got erased. I try to keep this green as long as possible.
Yeah, I'd actually try and form up a single file, whether it be up near the wall or whether it be down near the yellow line. I just say you form it up and stay like that for the rest of the race until you sort of need to make a push. I think they wanted to get Marshall Berry. I think they wanted to get his teammate out of there. They've done so. And even though it didn't jinx Brad Patterson, I got his teammate Bert Wilson, so it doesn't really matter. Still managed to go through Evolution Motorsport somehow, some way. And right now, Marshall Berry's still up on that high side. And actually, Timmy Longwood Jr., I think, may have been listening to you, Randy, because he has dropped a long way back. A couple of truck lengths already from the back of Brandon Holder. He may just drop him behind Sean Power. No, he's not clear. He can do so if he drops back a little bit more. And it looks like that's what they're doing.
These guys just sort of quite formed up. They sort of, it almost looks like intentionally getting themselves off cycle here. You see one car ducking to the high side, one staying in the middle. They're sort of intentionally, I think, not forming themselves up. I think they've realized the situation, knowing that, you know, there's no real reason here. Yeah, you could argue there's some bonus points, but really over a course of a long championship like this, Jake, especially with a chase format, there's no real point in pushing for 5 or 10 bonus points here or there, even if it is most laps led. 42 machine of Brad Patterson goes to the high line and immediately gets back down, as that top groove is pretty much all but gone extinct. And those guys, they might just form up their own little train here, and this is one of the big things. Those 3 cars, if they wanted to, they could fall back by about a second, and because there's only about 6 or 7 cars in this other lead pack, Jake, 3 cars, they could just keep pace back there just a little bit ways back and give themselves a little bit of a safety buffer.
Yeah, they actually could, especially with the lap traffic at the moment, because there is a lot of it as they're coming up on some right now. That's Everdef Lane on the inside of the 16 and Keith Stewart, the 28 of Tim Marlowe. Those two are going to have to stay high. Marshall Berry still just slowly falling off the back of this pack, and he's going to do so now and drop in behind the 21, and that is actually Matt Kingsbury. So Kingsbury's 2 laps down. The first truck that is 2 laps down. There is 2 other trucks 1 lap down. That's Doug Lemons and Christian Joyce. Joyce, the leading one of those, and as I say, that pretty much Tim Marlowe has fallen a lap down. He's going to join the end of the queue, so he will be the first truck 1 on the lead lap, and the first truck 1 lap down. He actually makes a move on Matt Kingsbury, so the 28 truck looks clean. He just needs to get that lap back and try and stay out of trouble.
I think he's going to be one who's going to try to aggressively. Don't be too aggressive about this, Marlowe. You just need to sort of latch onto the rear of this field. You don't necessarily need to be the one. You don't necessarily need to be 4th or 5th in line, as nice as it might be. You just need to get yourself down there, get yourself to the bottom, and let yourself run there. It's actually a big run for some reason from Marlowe up top. Those guys down low, I think, lifting out of the throttle a little bit. And that's going to be one of the big things, Jake, is I think normally in these trucks, you saw them in Cup cars on Sunday and Tuesday, about 40 to 45 laps. Trucks will be somewhere in the same ballpark. So for these guys now, this few cars all lined up, line of stern on the bottom, you basically start saving fuel, I think, to this point to the end.
Pretty much save as much fuel as you can, especially in this window that you have right now. A lot of trucks sort of off cycle or not on this lead pack. If you're in this lead pack, you just slow it down. There's no need to try and push flat out at the moment, even though I say slow it down. They're still going 190 mile an hour down the backstretch, but it's just one of those things. You don't want to be pushing super hard, as Brad Patterson gives Everett F8. It's like they're saying everything against what we're trying to say here, but sort of the matter is that they need to just calm it down. There's no need to try and make any silly moves. Watch their fuel mileage, because that's what it's going to be. That's going to be the point of this race now. Fuel mileage for the 7 or 8 trucks out in front.
That's going to be the big thing here. Is, you know, it's going to be sort of difficult for us not to repeat ourselves in the course of this one. We just lost so much of the field, and so much of the field is no longer a factor that there's really not much we can really do, as Everett F. Lane can continue to lead the way on the next sort of pack in line. Looking for the next cars that are in position, that's going to be a trio of Sean Ryan, William Tony, and Timmy Logwood Jr. They're about 8 seconds back, and as far as pace goes, about a second or so off the leaders that last time through. The 46.3 for Everett F. Lane at that circuit around the racetrack, going to be a 47.7 mid to high. So those guys are, I don't know if they have some damage from the contact or what, but they're formed up, and they need to, I think, work really, really hard to try to maintain it, because those guys have dropped off a lot and are dropping off a lot lap on lap.
Yeah, a lot of people are dropping off, and it's interesting. Timmy Logwood Jr. now down in that 10th spot. He's now 8 seconds behind the race lead. He was up with Holder and Berry before, but dropped a long way back. Unless he's come to pick up his teammate Sean M. Ryan, it may have been the case, but now they've picked up the pace just a little bit. 46.4 was from Timmy Logwood Jr. and 46.2 for the race leader. So they picked up the pace just a little bit back there, running about 8 seconds off the pace. And a lot of trucks now that they're starting the lap, starting to form on to the back of this leading group right now, Randy, because we just had Doug Lemons, Tim Marlowe, the 48, John Berger has also joined along with Keith Stewart. So a couple of these trucks, some are damaged, some aren't, just trying to hook onto the back of this leading group.
Yeah, that's really the big thing, I think, is these guys trying their hardest to just stay linked up here on this bottom groove as we're approaching 1/3 distance in this thing. Have one caution thus far, and a wreck that honestly should have brought one out. Lap 20 is when we went back to green flag racing after that first big incident, Jake, and now as we get closer and closer to 40, we're sort of getting close to the halfway point of this second run. So pit stop's about 60, and then somewhere around lap 100. So right now, as we currently sit, not really an issue in terms of fuel economy. There's no way you can make it to the end. You're going to see guys pit somewhere around lap 60, and then once again somewhere around 100, and then there you're going to be good to the end.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be one of those things, though, on that final stop, whether you just take gas and leave it at that. So you could maybe save a little bit, take out half a can to try and save a little bit more, but it's going to be that sort of a window where you take 4 tires, you take 2 to maybe give you a better handling truck in the later stage of the run, or you just take no tires and put some fuel in it, depending on when you come in. So that's going to be the strategy that these guys are going to have to make. The 28 once again, Tim Marlowe trying to form up an outside groove, but no one wants to do so at the moment. The 16 is sort of a couple of trucks back, trying to see what he can do from there. Doug Lemons moves up to maybe help the 28, but those 2 trucks, both multiple laps down. 1 lap for Tim Marlowe, 2 for Doug Lemons. They're just going to try and see if they can get the laps back at the moment.
That's going to be the big thing, and that's actually, I'm curious, what's the situation for those guys? See, Doug Lemons is sort of in an interesting situation where 2 laps down. He's also have Matt Kingsbury, he's at the end of this, so I think Doug wants to try to jump that 21 machine. That's technically for position. The thing is, though, is that these guys form up and start pushing really, really hard. Even if they were to get their laps back, Doug's not going to be in any position for that lucky dog. Where's John Vega? He's at the tail end of this pack, I actually think. Where is he? Yeah, he is the 48 machine. So there is a little bit of interest here for the 28 car. They're actually going to go 3 wide down this back straightaway as Tim Marlowe gets left out to dry. 42 of Brad Patterson, he uses the momentum from the 70, jumps up to the top, and he's going to take that race lead. The 28 of Marlowe's in the wall. Please, please, please don't bring out a caution with this few cars out in front.
nearly got into the fence. There would have been nothing between the 28 and the wall there going through 3 and 4. That was awfully close. A lot of momentum though. No one wanted to go with the 28 at Jim Marlowe. Lemon said nope, as the 42 was trying to go up to sort of get into that line and into that draft. And the 28, sorry, just didn't want to borrow, but made it 3 wide. Lemons didn't want any of that, so he just dropped in behind Brad Patterson, pushed him to the race lead, who is now getting a good shove from Everett F. Lane, and it's really actually mixed up this lead pack. I'll get back. It's been a while since I've been commentating. It's the 27 of Scotty Reinshield and Sean Powell on the outside, going to drop down into 3rd and 4th as they get around Doug Lemons.
These guys round themselves out off of corner number 4 and down in towards the short chute once again, in towards the tri-oval. Brad Patterson going to lead another lap as Upper Groove coming in 3rd and 4th place. That's Sean Powell and Sean Reinshield. They want to try to race here the 24 and the 42 as things are getting a little bit interesting out in front here, Jake, because it's not just one big pack of cars. These guys went from being a little bit racy to being really calm to being really racy once again. And like I said earlier, I don't really understand it. This many people have been taken out of this race and out of contention right now. They think you're just self-interest. Says to me, keep it green as long as I can. I don't really see the logic of trying to push each other to the front. Might be fun though, and like I said earlier, it reminds me of the old tandem days as Everett F. Lane and Brad Patterson. They're going to continue to work the bottom of the racetrack and try to push their way forward to the 27 as well as the 41. They try to do the same thing up top, and right now Brad looks keen on winning the race to the line this time through, as I think everyone is going to get back single file up against that yellow line, but it looks at things for the most part in the back. 1/3 truck thinking about joining that top groove. That's Matt Kingsbury, who's a couple laps down as well. So a bit of indecisiveness from these guys in this lead pack.
I just think no one knows what they want to do at the moment, because Patterson and Everett F. Lane jumped out to a massive lead at the moment. Obviously Scotty Reinshield and Sean Powell on that high side line, but that's it. Everyone else has gone away from this pack. There was a good chunk of drivers there. Frank Muglia is running about a second or so away from that race lead. Marshall Berry and Brandon Holder are 4 seconds back, and they've just teamed back up with that group that was coming with Sean Ryan, William Tony, and Timmy Logwood Jr. So, ironically, American Motorsports have found their way. All 4 trucks, except for William Tony in the GBR trucks, just sort of sitting in the middle of it all, but they're all there at the moment. Going to see what they can do as a 5-truck tandem to close down this leading group, which they should be able to do so. As on the high side, Scotty Reinshield through 1 and 2 with Sean Powell, Matt Kingsbury as well, multiple laps down, but giving him a helping hand, as a lot of these lap trucks are, I wouldn't even say up to speed right now, Randy. Brad Neer right there in the 9 as they come up with Timothy McQueen as well. They are super slow, and that could be the drama later on in this one.
It could be the big one of those guys get a little bit early up on that top side, and that makes me a little nervous. Never want to risk the bumper hook, and my oh my, would I be oh so critical if these guys dump each other with this sort of race lead. It's just so hard to explain. Like, I know a lot of people might be saying, Randy, they're out there, they're racing, they want to get themselves out in front. The thing is that self-preservation and game theory, and to me at this point just basically says keep that green as long as you can.
Yeah, keep it green and stay out of trouble. And these guys, I think, want to make the trouble at the moment. Scotty Reinshield, Sean Powell on that high side, definitely looking awfully close to hooking at each other a couple of times, especially through 3 and 4 last time round. And it's a track where you've got to preserve yourself, especially the truck later on. You need the truck to be clean. You make a little bit of contact with a wall, or you try and bumper hook someone and get, as we've seen before with Burt Wilson and Ryan Lang, it caused a lot of people with a lot of damage. Didn't get a caution for that one, and now look at how many trucks we got out in front. You've got to sort of say, as they are right now, as they've dropped in single file, and just think of the last 10 odd laps to go, especially with the way this race looks like it's going to play out.
Yeah, that's the big thing, is just keeping yourself out there. The 42 machine of Brad Patterson. Bobby Everhart, super slow. Is that just due to damage? Yeah, that's just damage. Okay. I was just sort of clicking through the field, and I wasn't sure what the issue was there. But he's doing 170 miles an hour, and that's because the car is pretty much dead. Brad Patterson, though, is now leading this group. And it's sort of interesting the way this lead pack has sort of spread itself out, Jake, because there was about 8 cars in this lead pack at one point. Now it's down to about 4, where you have the likes of Frank Gramuglia has dropped off about a second or so, and Marshall Berry, Brandon Holder, Sean Ryan, Timmy Logwood Jr. A couple of those drivers were part of this lead group at one point. I think one of those drivers, I think Marshall Berry was up here near the front, as well as the 5 of Brandon Holder. Either they lifted to get themselves out back down and around a bunch of teammates, which I think is what they did. And I think those guys, they're just back there saving a bunch of gas is the best way to think about it. They're doing 46s. Race leaders doing 46s as well. So they are slightly faster than the race leaders. So they think they just want to take the opportunity to get themselves all line astern.
Yeah, I think that's what they wanted to do. And actually, having a look back, they actually dumped William Toney. So all American Motorsports really put William Toney in a bit of a stranglehold. They used a lap car as a pick and sort of put the 87 all by himself, and they formed back up. And that's why William Toney in the 10 spot's actually dropped a little bit away from that 4-car tandem at the moment. That's just slowly creeping into this lead car pack at the moment. They are right hooked up. The 5 behind the 05, they are closing down that gap. Last time around, a 45.9 from Marshall Berry compared to that 46.5 of Brad Patterson. So those 4 trucks, now that they're all hooked up, they could easily freight train these guys on the high side, as these guys are going to split the difference between the 63, that looks like it's Glenn Jameson, and the 71 of Bobby Everhart down the backstretch, and they are so slow. And who is that? The 6 and the 2 are even slower, and that could cause a little bit of chaos there coming through 3 and 4, as those 2 trucks are not even up to 160 miles an hour going through 3 and 4, and that's a little bit dangerous.
Yeah, that's one of those things where I think we saw that in the season opener last season as well, that these guys were so far off speed that minimum speed rule should have come in. Oh no, this is going to be bad. As Perry Snelson, he almost dropped down to the bottom where all those American Motorsports guys were getting ready to come through the big head of steam. Wisely got back to the top side of the racetrack. A little bit nervous with that one there for a moment, but they stay out there. And I think it was it the second? I think it was the second Daytona race, either last season or the season before, where we saw this exact same thing, Jake, where there's a lot of damaged cars out there, and it caused a couple of awkward stack-ups at a couple points because the closing rate was just so insane.
Yeah, and especially when you got trucks like all those American Motorsports trucks in that 45 bracket, and that's a fast lap around here. They're obviously matching 195 to the middle of the corners. They are flying at the moment, and they are already looking to the high side of a couple more lap trucks. It's one of those things where it's the first round of the championship. I know it's a long season, and I think the mentality is just stay out, try and get as many points as you can, but it's a long season. There's a lot of races. There's going to be a lot of turning points in this championship this year. Like the next super speedway is only in round 10 at Talladega, so it's not like we've got a long way before that happens. You've got Daytona Road before then, and that's going to be another one that's going to mix it up a little bit. So I think you just sort of need to park those trucks or a little bit out of it and just say day done, because there's no point causing more issues than not.
Yeah, I'm sort of in the same boat as you, as they come up on another couple crippled cars. This is Paul Bliss, who brought out that last yellow, as well as the 58 of Ed Zaghetti. So those guys not having the day they would like, as Brad Patterson leads another lap as we're quickly approaching half distance in this one, only about 12 or so laps away from that marker. As well, for those who are just now maybe tuning in, it's been sort of a downhill race in some ways. Started out looking really good. We had a big caution that came off of people being a little bit over aggressive, forcing it 3 wide, and then once again people being really aggressive, trying to make that top side work. Jake got another car a little bit loose, got into someone else. Everyone sort of kept it okay. 1 or 2 cars spun down to the inside, but it was no big issue until someone hooked themselves trying to rejoin. So it's basically just been over aggression, really been the big story of how this race has shaped up. That said, American Motorsports Group, those guys are quickly closing in on that lead pack. They're consistently ticking off laps that are about half a second or so quicker than that lead pack. So those guys, after forming up, are looking super quick.
Yeah, and we knew they were going to be quick. American Motorsports, I think, are going to be the team to sort of watch out for. Obviously, the next person you're going to have to watch out for is going to be Travis Townsend. He's definitely going to be the one that could definitely spice things up on other racetracks. But here, when it comes to a super speedway, it used to be like the old whip racing. I know whip racing's a long seasons ago, but they used to be the one that we'd always talk about in super speedways. Now I think it's American Motorsports gang. You've got the odd couple of drivers there, like as well as Evolution Motorsports can be up there, like Brad Patterson is at the moment. But as a team, wholesome right now, American Motorsports looks the strongest, and they are closing in on this lead gap, just over 2 seconds away from the race lead. Yeah,
that's the big thing, and they're going to be there very, very quickly. And I think if you're in this it'll be interesting to see though, Jake, of what you do. What do you do if you're in this lead pack? Because you've sort of just been cruising on autopilot right now, basically saying, oh yeah, there's not really much competition. Let's just get to the pit stops. But that group comes charging up behind you as quick as they are. They're probably going to be able to get up to the top side and push their way around you if they choose to do so. What do you do then? Do you try to just stay patient and calm, cool, and collected if you're on that lead pack and keep doing what you're doing, or do you try to get racy with that quartet that's charging up behind?
Well, the quartet is actually trying, I think, break itself up. Timmy Logwood Jr. just dropped off the back of it. Sean M. Ryan did the same thing as well. So I'm sure that they're trying to pace themselves up to this leading pack. Might be the case that they're going for at the moment. But I know if they were still formed up in that four trio that they were, the quartet before coming up to the front, I think you just sort of let them go and just try and tag onto the back, because there'd be no point trying to jump in front of them because they just steamroll through. So there'd be no point in trying to cause that sort of a overly aggressive move. And right now, Holder and Marshall, they're out in front of this little group that they've got formed up, and they're going to go to the inside of that 2 and 6, which are just super slow out on that racetrack. Sorry boys, but I think those two trucks need to be parked for the rest of this one, because they are awfully slow on that high side. And right now, Masterberry closing in, but not as much as they were before. So I think they're just trying to slowly inch their way back up to this lead group and then figure it out from there.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's basically that big thing right now. They're just sort of like maintaining the gap. I think this is a good call by them to do what they did. Is now they get around Timothy McQueen, he's cruising out there at 170 miles an hour. So he's sort of on the brink of probably should be parked as well. He is quicker though by himself than Torrey and Snelson, who are just cruising out there at 160 with a slipstream. But I think these American Motorsports guys, Jake, it's a good call to push really aggressive the way they did and then back it off, because you want to just bring that gap down any way you can. It's out to about 3 seconds, and really if you wait until the final moments to do that, you might cut it a little bit short, because eventually this lead group, if this race stays green, is going to get really, really pacey and really pick up the pace, whereas everyone right now is basically just being calm, cool, collected, and really saving gas when they can.
Yeah, exactly. And when you look at it, actually, the four of Timmy Logwood Jr. and Sean M. Ryan, they were 7 to 8 seconds away from the race lead, because Logwood Jr. dropped all the way back to pick up his teammate, picked him up, and now he's driven him all the way back up to the front with his teammates of the 5 and the 05. So they've got some stout trucks out there, and to be able to do what they're doing right now, just sort of managing the gap, they have got their heads in the game, and that's what I expect from these guys for the whole season long. I know it's early, but they were doing this last season. They know how to do it now. They've got a couple of seasons under their belts, and let's see what they can do now. They're just sort of keeping it. They just slowed the gap down a little bit now. I think they're going to try and form back up and go again. They're just sort of managing it and watching from afar, and it's a good job that they're doing that, because if something was to happen, it'd be the leading group that's going to happen. But 4 trucks v4, it's American Motorsports versus everyone else at the motorsport at the moment, and I think it's going to be hard for anyone to beat them.
Before I didn't know that we had MLG settings in iRacing come recently here. These guys run themselves through 3 and 4 on the high banks once again. Of course, there is one truck sort of playing maybe a little bit of a, let's say, curveball in this, and that's Mr. Kingsbury, who's running 5th in line of the lead group, but he is running 19th. He's a couple of laps down, but he is sort of out there, and having that extra truck, that is potentially a variable.
Yeah, that extra truck, especially, it's got a little bit of damage of Kingsbury to the back of that truck. The 21's definitely not clean, got involved in that early incident, and it's just going to be one of those things where he's just going to have to see what he can do right now in terms of getting his lap back. He's 2 laps down, I should say, so he needs 2 laps back. He needs cautions. If he's going to get them, I don't think so, but he just needs to try and tag on. If he gets in the way, it's going to be a little bit chaotic, but I think he knows what he's doing. I think we know what he's going to be doing, so he's just going to sit there, try and hope for a couple of cautions, see what those guys behind are going to be doing, who are actually now starting to drop away a little bit. Now 1.6 seconds behind the race lead. We'll see what they are at the stripe as Brad Patterson leads another lap, 1.5, so they're just managing. American Motorsports are just playing the long game, as once again, looks like they're coming up onto the 6 and the 2 on that high side. No, that's the 85 and the 58 Zagetti and Paul Bliss who are traveling slowly through 1 and 2.
I was going to say, if they are already lapping them, then good Lord. That says Torrey and Snelson, they're just now entering 3, and your lead pack is entering 3 right about now. So it's still, that is the pace difference. Those guys are running 55-second lap times versus 46 for the race leaders, as They circle through 3 and 4 once again. That said, Jake, green flag pit stop starting soon, and we've seen in this championship in the past, some people are very, very good at getting down onto and off of pit road. Other people not so much, and that might shake things up, because if we just get a few people that end up getting things wrong on pit road, we could be talking about only 2 or 3 cars in that lead pack once everything cycles through.
Yeah, this is where you have to be on your game, whether these guys practice it or not, especially after the duels and the clashes, which had a couple of cautions that sort of thinned the field out as well, whether they were able to get some practice. Oh, there's the 2 and the 6 as they go by on the higher side. And yeah, whether they got some practice actually getting down the pit roads, holding that truck up, getting it to pit lane speed, and then getting it in the box. It's a lot harder now to get these trucks into that pit lane and make sure you stop on your marks. You could be an inch forward and you won't be able to get the pit stop started, so you've got to make sure that you nail every part of this cycle now, as that is a 9 on the inside of Brad Neer as they go to the high side of him, go through into 1, and they're going to get him clear before they do so. But yeah, you've got to make sure you nail it now.
Brad Neer used to be one of my favorites, but not anymore. He's running an LSR scheme, so I'm not going to talk about him for the rest of the season. That group puts him a lap down, though. I'll talk about him not doing good things. So I think is that how the favoritism works, Jake?
I think that's how it works. I'm just going to roll with whatever you're going to go with now, because I don't even know.
Well, that's great. You want to play a game of tic-tac? No, I'm kidding. Brad Patterson going to lead up once again. Let's see if anyone opts to take pit road here. I think the American Motorsports guys likely going to be on down towards pit road slightly sooner, because they, of course, fell way back, got themselves hooked up, and then charged up to these race leaders. They would have used a little bit more gas doing that, where if these guys have been more consistently 2 to 3 tenths off pace, so maybe should have been saving naturally a little bit more gas as they now all head down the back straightaway once again. So when does people come down pit road? And one thing that I did notice, Jake, we saw it sort of in peak last night, as well as in the NASCAR iRacing Series, the Daytona 500 season opener on Sunday, the Sunday morning race that we broadcast. A lot of times here at Daytona, it's the guys who pit slightly earlier that have the advantage, because when you're all stacked up like you are, if you're the group that comes down a few laps early, or maybe 1 or 2 laps early, you can get out there, get hooked up, and you can get yourself up to speed, while those competitors in front of you, when they come down pit road, you come charging at 190, 200 miles an hour, where they'll start cruising at 180, 185 trying to get wound up. You can get a lot of easy spots that way.
Yeah, you can get a bunch of easy spots that way and be able to do something with it. And just having a look as well, the 27, the 41, and the 21 are actually all teammates. And just having a look through the thing, I think they are, yeah, they are, for their Aero Refinement group. So those 3 trucks, they're actually all teammates, so they may all come down together. The 42 and the 24, however, are not. So those 2 are going to have to sort of judge when one comes down to come down with them, or whether the 3 trucks behind them, sorry, all drop down before they even think about doing so. So it could be a little bit of mind games playing out between this group of 5 trucks out in front. I'm going to call it 5 because Kingsbury sort of made himself a part of it at the moment. But these 4 behind, obviously American Motorsports, they all know when they're going to pit. They're already going to be talking to each other about that cycle of when they're going to do so. I reckon we're going to be looking around about 3 to 4 laps before that cycle of when these guys are going to come down.
It's really the big thing of when you want to do it. Like you said, we're sort of basing our numbers based on what we saw in the Cup cars this week, because a lot of people have done a lot of running at Daytona the last 7 or so days as they work themselves off 3 or 4. Let's see if people are going to come down early or not. Take a look as these guys drive past pit road. Nothing going just yet. A couple of cars are down there. Who is that entering pit road? This is just a straggler, and it is a lap car. It's actually Timothy McQueen. You also have John Verga. He's putting himself down towards pit lane. The other cars with damage, Jake, and that means they're going to have slightly minimized top speed because of the aerodynamic inefficiency, as well as higher fuel less fuel economy, I should be saying here. So for those guys, even though they're likely running out of fuel a little bit earlier, probably about 2 to 3 laps earlier than this group, still sort of an indicator of where the fuel levels are going to be.
Yeah, so a couple of laps maybe for this leading group, unless some of them are going to peel down now, but we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, those guys definitely, a lot of damage on those race trucks are going to hurt them. As behind the American Motorsport trucks closing that gap. No, they're not, as I say that. All 4 of them come down pit road. Well, what up, boys? Don't get a speeding penalty, because you may just ruin yourselves for the entire race. So now they're going to make sure they nail every single one of these guys. Has to be smart in the box, straight, and get the job done. Looks like Barry is going to be the first one to do so. Barry's
Barry, I think, got it perfect.
Yep, got it nailed. As Lemons is in there, Holder's good, Logwood's good, and so is Ryan. So every single one of them in the box, ready to go, and now they just got to all leave together, and it's right as rain.
I think Brad Patterson's getting a little bit bored. Maybe we can get a replay, but this last time down the Daytona Super Stretch, he basically just sat at the lead of this little group, bobbing and weaving that truck back and forth all the way down that nearly 1 mile long back straightaway, just constantly left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, and then got it basically straightened up and stable back into 3 and 4. This group now hits pit road, though, and, well, let's see what happens. What's going to be the advantage? It's only a 1-lap advantage in terms of fuel economy. That's going to be, I'm going to just say it, irrelevant in this race when it all comes down to it. But let's see, where is this American Motorsports group? Marshall Berry's up on the racetrack, as well as everyone else. They need to get themselves formed up and get to pushing here as quickly as they can, and then they should be able to, I think, get around this entire group that's just now hitting pit lane, as long as they're all on the same tire strategy in theory. Brad Patterson took lefts only, but he was down on pit road. Wait, oh, no, never mind. He took 4 tires. I just tuned in a little bit late. So let's see where that American Motorsports quartet, they're now formed up on the racetrack. Well, the lead group, they're getting themselves back up there and up to speed. I think American Motorsports might jump these guys.
And the one thing that this leading group isn't done is form themselves up. Brad Patterson is a good 10-odd truck lengths ahead of Scotty Reinshield. Everett F. Lane is just rejoined behind them. Sean Powell is another good odd bunch behind, so they are not formed up at all. And here comes this leading quartet of American Motorsports. You can say it leading group, because if they can get themselves around this 32 of Brent Keith, they should be able to get themselves straight past this leading 4 trucks. Here they come. Already they're going to close up to Sean Powell. That's the 05 and the 4. Leading this group now, Marshall Berry and Timmy Logwood Jr. to the high side of the 41. They're going to get that job done, so that's going to put another truck behind this group. If the only issue is they've got a bit of a gap, so they may want to try and close that up, because Powell may feel it. No, he doesn't. I think that would have been a smarter decision, but couldn't get the job done before that 04 closed the gap. And they're going to move themselves now into that quartet with Matt Kingsbury now on their inside.
So that lead group of American Motorsports is quickly coming strong. They haven't taken the race lead yet, because you still have Everett F. Lane as well as Scotty Ronchild and Brad Patterson out in front. Those 3 are just getting themselves hooked up. Scotty's just latched on the back of that Evolution Motorsports machine, and now Everett F. Lane, he's going to be looking to do the same, as well as that American Motorsports group is going to come charging in at full speed. Let's see what the lap times are and see how much time that American Motorsports quartet has gained. Brad Patterson's going to cycle through now across start finish. Going to be a 48.7 from him. American Motorsports guy is going to be a 46.6. So that's what we're talking about, Jake. We're talking about that speed advantage those guys have by going out there a lap early and getting out there when those guys are getting back round up at the speed. Just sort of an easy way to pick up some spots, versus if you wait late to be that truck that's coming off of pit road while everyone's already fully charged up to speed behind you. It's a very, very anxiety, let's say, inducing situation to have trucks charging up behind you 10 to 15 miles an hour faster.
Yeah, and that's what these guys are doing right now. 4 of them closing in on the 3. They've lost Sean Power. They've lost Matt Kingsbury. So those 2 are going to have a hard day now trying to close back up to the race leaders. And now let's see if they go high. There is a truck up there that is going to be coming across right now. It's going to be lapped down with some damage. Whether they go up there and try and do it, no, they're just going to sit in behind right now and wait it out. That's the 7 of Bert Wilson, who was initially involved in that second incident before bumper hooking. Well, I can't really say bumper hooking, but got bumper hooked and then had a car bumper hook themselves on his front bar. And now I'm going to see if these American Motorsports guys, they're playing it smart, aren't they, Randy? I thought they may have been able to blow the doors off these trucks, but they just didn't.
Yeah, I think I may have would have, but that's okay. They latch themselves now onto this little lead pack and just keep themselves now towards the back end. And now the big question to me, though, is, Jake, is what do you do in terms of fuel strategy? Because honestly, if that would have been me on pit road, I may have just thought about putting it to about an 80%, 30% fill and dividing this into two 30-lap runs, as we're going to see Everett Lane jump up to the top side. You have Brandon Holder, who's up there, so those two are going to try to push their way forward here. So that's one of the American Motorsports guys going a little bit rogue and saying, you know what, I'm going to adopt communism, forget capitalism, as they head down the super stretch. And Everett Lane in the 24, he's going to get pushed out there out in front, and a couple of the other American Motorsports guys, they're going to follow suit as well. So capitalism comes back in full force.
Comes back for a little bit. They've still split up the main four of those trucks. Everett Lane now still on that higher side. Patterson trying to see what he can do on that low side, and now this is where I get a little bit worried, because now these guys are starting to form up, and they were the two that I was just about to mention, the 2 and the 6, because of how slow they are running, and these guys running side by side. That could have caused an issue, but they got around them this time. Now another 6 odd laps later, we'll see them once again. Let's hope they're all formed up by that time, as the 24 moves now solely into the race lead. The 5 stuck out there. Scotty Reinshield moves himself up to block that hole in between the two American Motorsports trucks, and now going to see what he can do to try and push the 5 to the front.
That's really the big thing, says Everett Lane is lashing himself down there on the bottom. Mr. Brad Patterson in the 42 still having a pretty good night here, running in 30, led a lot of laps, of course, before that caution. But talking about the fuel economy, Jake, I know you've won a couple Truck Series championships. Unfortunately, that doesn't qualify for any Sperry points for Evolution Racing Team. I know how much that matters to your team over there. But talking about that fuel economy, what do you think you would have done? Would you have tried to turn it into two 30 lap or so fills, or would you have maybe decided to just fill it up full here rather than just make it a super short stop at the end, as these guys are getting a little bit dicey with the lap traffic?
Yeah, I think I would have filled it up from here. It's sort of one of those things, if a caution comes out and
what do you know? You don't have any.
There's the 42, turn the 24. Oh, that's an interesting one. I'm just, yeah, that was boys have at it at its finest, which is what this series is sort of based around. But that didn't need to happen to neither of them. They had to run. The 42 Patterson looked to the inside of Everett Lane. Lane tried and get back in front of that low side group, and it didn't happen.
That reminds me of Brian Vickers turning Jimmy Johnson at Talladega all those years ago, and I completely agree with you there, Jake. Brad's sort of a good buddy. I've sort of gotten to know him over the years we've been broadcasting this series, and I have to say there was no reason for him to stick nose down there for the race lead. I get it, you want to lead here at Daytona, you want to be out in front if you can, but I really think that pushing the margin quite that late, quite that tight, and especially with so many laps remaining in this and with so few competitors, that's only ever going to not go good if people get loose off of 4. Come on, boys, as these guys get scary loose off of 4. There's only about 10 of you in this lead pack. Calm it down.
Well, it's all kicking off right now. I don't think it's bad. And the 42's come back to the race lead side by side with Brandon Holder, and going to see what they can do now out in front. Patterson's got no help either on that high side. These guys are really starting to push a little bit harder. But back to the point I was trying to make before they all started to kick off, was that I would have filled it up in case a caution was to come out because of this. If you sort of were in this situation, they started to fight a little bit hard towards the end of the stint, knowing that the laps are winding down, and a caution obviously came out then, but you already made your pit stop. You may have fallen a little bit off the pace. You may have been lapped because of these guys in the draft, and you underfitting or underfueling the truck. So I would have filled it up and just played it as it came. If everyone came down and early, you'd come with them. So just sort of opens it up a little bit.
Trying to take a quick review here of my Dropbox. I was having some internet issues, so I closed everything a while ago. But does that 24 machine have any teammates in this lead group? Because the way I see it is that Brad, being as aggressive as he was, he just sort of turned himself. Everyone in this lead pack is going to be like, wow, that 42 car, he's definitely the bad guy in that situation, and no one's going to work with him. So the 42 of Patterson, who's had a complete struggle the last, nearly half dozen or so seasons now, he sort of put himself in a situation where I don't know if anyone in this lead group, when it comes down to it, is going to push him to the front if he's in such a situation.
Yeah, it puts me in an interesting one knowing that that's just happened. His teammates, obviously, of Everett Lane is Britt and Paul Bliss, so they're definitely not going to help him. But the two Evolution Motorsport trucks is Glenn Jameson and Bert Wilson, but they're both damaged at the moment. I don't think they've picked up anyone else during the off-season, just having a quick look through, and I don't think they have. So it's the same 3 trucks for Evolution Motorsport, as well as Abe Bowden. Sorry, they picked up Abe Bowden at the end of last season, but Abe, unfortunately, I think he's a long way behind as well. Actually, no Abe Bowden. Oh yeah, there he is. 20th at the moment. He's just on pit road, so there's no one for Patterson to work with. He's sort of a lone ranger at the moment. There's 4 American Motorsports trucks among this group as well, and Scotty Reinshield, I don't think he knows what he wants to do because he nearly got turned. So I think it's just going to be interesting. But Patterson's holding his own on that high side ring, doing a good job at it at the moment.
Yeah, the inside's basically saving gas. That's the only way to explain that.
Well, as the 2 and the 6 come up quite quickly on that high side, I don't know whether you would be right now, would you? I think the way that these guys have been racing, it looks like they've been very racy. And
Jake, you don't have to hype it up. There's 1 truck up top and about a dozen on the bottom. They're saving gas.
I'm just going to say I wouldn't be at this point, so I don't know why they would be, because you're not going to make it. You're going to have to make a pit stop. So
right, but that next pit stop will get you to the end, and if it goes green, you have a short fill.
Yeah, but you're still going to put 4 tires on it if you do.
No, you don't. You just go with 2. Why would you put 4 on? It's a plate track.
I'd put 2 on it, but some of them may put 4 on depending on the way
they obviously don't want to win the race. These guys continue to cruise their way around as me and Jake are quickly turning this into Race Spot After Dark, as there's a couple of guys putting a couple tires down underneath the yellow line. That was Marshall Berry doing so. I'm not exactly sure what's happening. I think these guys maybe getting a little bit impatient here, or maybe just lack of a better term, might be bored, as they're now coming up on the trio of Brad Neer, James Hickson, and Timothy McQueen. Those guys are currently locked to the bottom of the racetrack. Let's see what they opt to do, as they're struggling to stay in line as the race leaders cycle through. Normally I would say get to the top, but too late now, boys. Keep it pinned down to the bottom, and hopefully the leaders can cycle their way through. Those guys try to stay low as hard as they can, and I think everyone should be able to cycle through up top here cleanly. There's a handful of other trucks here at the tail end of this little lead pack, and I think we're clear of those lead lappers for now.
Yeah, clear of those guys for now, as pretty much the lead group has formed up, and as I say that, Patterson says, no, I want to go to the high side once again and do it all on my own. So Patterson to that high side in that 42 truck, as the 5 actually moves up with him. Oh, the 71. Oh, Bobby Everhart, that wasn't. I think Holder went a little bit too high, nearly got into the back of that 71 truck, and now I think they're trying to leave Scotty Ryan. The guys are getting racy again out in front. 42 now getting formed up with Sean M. Ryan behind him. Marshall Berry as well. I think the American Motorsports may be trying to form themselves up once again, I'm sure. But Patterson getting a big shove from Sean M. Ryan through 1 and 2. That's going to push him pretty much out in front. Another little bump coming off of turn number 2. Don't bumper hook him, Sean. Otherwise, that's your teammate on the inside you're going to get. And I think Brandon Holt is actually rolling out of that one and letting the 2 teammates jump back in front. And Patterson now to the lead.
So Patterson leads the quartet. This is going to be a little bit more struggling. I think Scotty Reinshield here, Jake. I honestly think if I'm in that 27 machine, if I'm struggling the way I am, I think I want to try to get into the back of this little train, because we've seen that 27 car consistently have to chase that truck up the racetrack.
Oh,
and it's just, a couple cars are around. That's going to be a caution. Everything's going to get reset. 16 and Keith Stewart is around. What happened here? The 41 and the 16, as there was a truck up top. A lapper of Ed Zaghetti, who, again, one of the drivers we said should have brought it off the racetrack, basically forcing people into a 3-wide scenario, who's still able to go full speed. And, well, those two come together, and not much you can really do after that. 16 tried to save it, and he ended up hitting the wall hard.
Yeah, they just sort of made side-to-side contact. Big hit, though, for the 16 and Keith Stewart. Zaghetti got a little bit of that as well, as this actually brings out our second caution of the night. No one else involved. No, it was the 16 was able to get it cleanly away from that one, but his day already 4 laps down for the 16, but a lot more damage to that 16 truck. As the 42 out in front brings out that 3rd caution, and pretty much a reset with 40 to go.
60 to go. Wait, no, hold on. 40 to go. You're right.
40 to go.
I was on the wrong person because I'm not a smart person. And now, well, I mean, that pretty much takes everything in terms of fuel away here, Jake, because you're going to come down pit road right here. I think you're going to fill the car up, and depending how you feel on tires, you might take 4. I think 2 is still going to be potentially viable here. Whether it's lefts or rights will entirely depend on how you're liking that car set up. I think other than that, for the most part, there's really not much to talk about. There's a handful of other cars that are still on the lead lap. We're only going to have, I think, a total of 13 when lucky dogs come through. Tim Marlowe is going to be in the 28 car, I believe, the person getting that lucky dog. But it's going to be him and then Gramuglia, Everett Lane, who after getting spun, he's coming back with Ryan Lang, Adam Jocelyn, Tyler Hayes. So only 12 cars, not really going to see any big shakeups. So because of that, we are going to step away here on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live, catch our breath, and then we will be bringing you the run to lap number 120, all hopefully ad-free, unless we get a bunch of yellows here on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. Don't go away.
Introducing a whole new form of racing to the best online racing simulation in the world. This is Dirt Racing on iRacing.com. Race online at some of America's most legendary dirt tracks, including Eldora and Williams Grove. iRacing is the premier online racing game featuring NASCAR, IndyCar, sports cars, and now World of Outlaws, the leading sanctioning body for dirt racing. iRacing is easy to use and features a centralized ranking system to make sure you have the best experience at any skill level. With a massive inventory of high-precision laser scan tracks and cars with an unmatched dedication to quality and detail, iRacing gives you the most authentic online racing experience available. Thanks to iRacing's dynamic track system, developed specifically for dirt racing, tracks change over the course of a race, just like your favorite dirt track on a Friday or Saturday night. From a slick racing groove all the way up to the cushion, iRacing's dirt tracks deliver non-stop racing action. Partnered with the World of Outlaws, iRacing is your source for the most authentic dirt racing experience available, featuring 4 brand new tracks and 11 new cars, including street stocks, Legends cars, late models, NASCAR trucks, winged and non-winged sprint cars, with much more on the way. Join the Dirt Revolution on iRacing.com and start slinging mud today.
Welcome back here to RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. As we continue to pace here under caution, we should be getting the 1 to go signal here in just a couple of moments. Marshall Berry has inherited the race lead. 42 machine of Brad Patterson has fallen back to 5th. Jake is, well, things are going to get stacked back up, and this is going to be interesting with the number of competitive cars that we have on the racetrack. It's going to be an interesting fight here for the final 40 laps. Hopefully we can keep it green.
Yeah, hopefully we can keep it green, and after that pit stop cycle, like you said, obviously Brad Patterson dropping down into that 5th spot, but out in front, the top 4, or American Motorsports trucks. So they're going to be lining up in those first 2 rows on this restart, and I think it's going to make for an interesting one when they all go green to see how they're going to play that. But Patterson down there is going to be that lone ranger to try and mix it up with Scotty Ryan Shield, who has now got his teammate back of Sean Powell in that 7th spot, 8th. Grimuglia with Jocelyn in 9th, and Ryan Lang rounding out the top 10 at the moment as they start to double up as the lights are out in the pace car.
Lights are out, field begins to double up as we're going to have about 30 or so laps to go. And total number is going to be 36 once we go back to green flag racing in the field, cycles his way through. Marshall Berry doing some old school Dale Earnhardt maneuvers, pulling out in front of the pace car and then getting back in line as these guys getting ready to go back to green. So 40 to go here, Jake. Who's your pick to win this thing?
It's going to be hard. There's so many good guys up in front. It's going to be the way that these American Motorsport guys play it. I reckon it could be either Ryan or Logwood Jr. Those two actually look like they've been the strongest. The way those two were able to drop back and sort of pick themselves up and move them way back up to the front, I reckon they've got a little bit more in hand over Holder and Berry. So I think it's going to come from one of those two, but whether they play the I want to go win the race instead of teammate card, that's going to be the interesting one.
So, following the pace car once again down in towards 3 and 4. Second caution, I believe, on the night, if memory serves me correctly, which it probably doesn't because I'm getting too old for this sort of thing. And yes, it is indeed the second caution on the evening. Should have been the third, excuse me, because we did have one big stack up at one point that inexplicably did not bring one out. But most importantly, everyone here should be good to the end. Everyone should have just came down pit road, taken fuel, and gotten back out there. So the big question now is all you have to do, take that right foot, plant it to the floor, and try to win the Dark Matter Design 300 season opener for the Espeed Contender Series. Live here from Daytona. A couple cars in the background immediately duck down to pit lane, but your race leaders, they storm through the tri-oval and off towards 1 and 2 inside of 36 to go.
As there's a massive stack up in the back of the pack. The 6 of Perry Snelson was right in the middle and everyone just couldn't get around him. A lot of these damaged trucks just stacking this field up, and a lot of the guys who actually have clean trucks trying to work their way through. As out in front, the 05 and the 04 now to the inside, and out in front is Marshall Berry and Sean and Ryan. They got the better jump as Brad Patterson comes up to try and stop the 5 and the 4 on the high side coming down as the 27 of Scotty Ryan Shield tries to follow them through as well.
A lot of spread out race cars right now through this field. I think a lot of people try to play some politics and get themselves to the bottom, but no one really quite able to do so. Marshall Berry trying to do his best to hold out front as Sean Ryan is squirreling back and forth a little bit. Those guys seem to be struggling, trying to get themselves all paired up as American Motorsports drivers. But Timmy Logwood Jr. and Brandon Holder on the top, they're trying to be really aggressive right now, Jake, and that's a good decision by them, because if they can get a big run, just the duo of them, and get out to nearly the front and get themselves clear, that'd put American Motorsports 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, that'd be a great
Here they come
for those guys. Here they come. Yep, exactly that. Moving their way up on that high side, the two of them trying to get to the front and make it a 4-car train for American Motorsports. Not able to do so this time round as they entered 3 and 4. One of the dark horses, though, they've just seen that closed up in the back of this. Frank Grimuglia running for Travis Townsend Racing now. So Grimuglia will have a good truck underneath him. Doesn't have Townsend out in front to help him, but he should be able to do something with that truck.
I think it'd be one of the big talking points of this season here, Jake. The fact that we saw Travis Townsend take last season off, however, comes back this year in that number 83 machine. Of course, he's been so good as Marshall Berry tags the apron coming off of 2. This is going to cause a big checkup on the inside. 4 and the 5 might have a good opportunity to get themselves out clear their teammates now, but don't have quite enough of a run. The 4 is not quite close enough to be able to push that 5 cars, and because of that, they're just going to be stuck out there. I honestly think here, Jake, the best way to do this is honestly let those 2 drop back a little bit, and I think if you're Marshall Berry as well as Sean Ryan, 2 of you go up to the top and work with them and try to pull them clear of that car of Brad Patterson. I think that's the best way to get your 4 of you out in front right now, as they're again going to get a big push to the top.
Whether they want to do that, no, I'm not sure about it, Randy, because right now I think they're just trying to hold both the lines, especially if some of these guys start to move up and try and form that outside group to move to the front. I think they'd rather have both of them than watch, say, 4 or 5 trucks behind them try and make that outside work, because at the moment, Scotty Ryan Shield, the next one behind Brad Patterson, Franklin Muglia, Sean Powell. Adam Jocelyn is in this pack as well. He's got a decent truck that looks pretty clean. Same with Ryan Lang, even though he's been involved in, I think, both of the incidents right now. He's still got a good truck. And Tyler Hayes as well in the 95 behind. So see what they're going to do behind if any of those try and form up that high side, as Hayes and Lang actually do something about that right now. But right now, 4 trucks out in front side by side, and they just can't do anything about it.
All teammates all hooked up and working together as they roll through 1 and 2 once in. Still some lap traffic, of course, you have to worry about. Darius Nelson and James Troy, they're going to get tagged here. Another lap down in just a moment. 30-mile-an-hour difference or so is the difference in closing speeds of the 4 or 5. You see them again still working that upper groove, trying to get a bit of a push. A couple other cars jumping up there. The 13 of Gramuglia in that Townsend Motorsports meet, as you said, was Ryan Lang and Tyler Hayes. They're sort of back to the tail end of this field. Not really unsure. I think they're pretty unsure, of what they want to do as 4 and 5. They're going to give them a shove up top. Let's see. Can Brandon Holder lead a lap here? Nope. Not going to quite have it. Marshall Berry's going to thank the low line gods and clip the apron once again, and thank the traction gods that he doesn't spin it in front of the field.
That was very loose going through the exit of that trial, and once again the 2 and the 6 on the high side. I'm surprised their trucks are still running, to be fair. That slow, you'd think they would have been blown up by now, but they're still going out there on the racetrack, and right now that's actually helped break this back up just a little bit. There's a couple of truck lengths back between the 42 and the 27. Gramuglia can't do anything with that high side right now as they pass the 85 of Paul Blues, who's going exceptionally slow as well. And right now still side by side out in front. I think this is sort of going to be the way they're going to play it out. Randy, I think, about to around 10 to go. Obviously, everyone's put on fuel. Whatever tyres they put on it was whatever they put on it. So from here on out, I think it's just going to be just sit out in front and wait for that sort of final 10 laps, and then we could see some chaos. But I'm still surprised that those 2 out in front are on that high line. Just trying to make it work. I think you just sort of sit in line, maybe even go to the back. I don't think there's really any need right now.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing right now is those 2 up top still just controlling that upper groove as best as they can. They roll off towards 3 and 4. Really no strategy in this really up until about, I think we're going to have about 10 laps where things really start getting hectic here, Jake, because we're inside of 30 laps to go. Going to be 29 at the stripe, and I think 20, 15, maybe even 10 is here at Daytona. As few cars are in this train, I think that I honestly might be just confident enough waiting till about 10 laps to go to start making my moves.
Yeah, if we had the big train of most of the trucks still left in the race, then yeah, you'd be looking at roughly 15 to 20 to go, because if you're at the back of it, you've got to start making moves, otherwise you're not going to get there in time. So at the moment, 10 to go, especially for some of those guys at the back might be able to do something about it in that sort of a window. But right now, everyone, part of me, is just sort of sitting there and just biding their time, waiting for that window of just to go to open. So right now, Patterson's sitting there. I think he looks like he has had a really strong truck. Unfortunately, he hasn't had any teammates, which he usually has with him, but they couldn't get hooked up early on. Both of them, his teammates got involved in early incidents, and now he's still a Lone Ranger, but he's got a good truck. Even though he had that little bit of an incident with Everett Lane, he can definitely do something with it.
It's really the big thing. Couple guys been in some incidents that are still doing a good job. Things are getting a little bit spicy here. His 3rd truck in line. I believe that Patterson is all over the racetrack. He was from the bottom to the top to the bottom to the top there for a moment, and I was worried he's either going to hook one of those guys in the upper groove or hook himself on the apron. And let's see, what's he going to opt to do here is he's going to close a little bit on the 04 of Sean Ryan a little bit, but not quite close enough to make anything of it. But that was scary moments there from that 42 truck.
Yeah, I think the air got disturbed on the side of it. The 4 of Timmy Logwood Jr. I think it's, yeah, it is Timmy Logwood Jr. I'm going to get used to these numbers pretty quick.
No, we won't.
We definitely won't. But yeah, Timmy Logwood Jr. on that high side, I think he just disturbed the air on the side of that truck as he came down, because he really ran him tight through 1 and 2 last time around. This time he gives him a little bit more room, and I think that just disturbed the 42, made him go a little bit close to that apron, sort of wiggled that truck as the 05 Berry's running that yellow line very tight. Whether they're trying to check this group up, because it looks like that might be what they're doing, because Short M. Ryan's right on the back, and as I say that, no, they just push each other back out the front.
pretty much as they run themselves through 3 and 4. So these guys are getting very, very good. Like I said, it's going to be sort of a slow burner up until we get those closing handful of laps. Everyone's just playing line of stern right now. They know they're in race-winning positions and, well, potential race-winning positions. And that said, though, at the same time, Jake, I feel like if you're one of these guys who's 5th, 6th, 7th in line, if you're Brad Patterson, if you're Sean Powell, if you're Scotty Ronchild, Jocelyn Gramuglia, you look at those top 4, you see that they're all teammates, both on the bottom and up top. I think you might be wise to start trying to make your moves a little bit early to try to break that quartet up somehow, maybe try to make something happen in the middle groove. Because the 4 and the 5, they're actually leaving a lot of space in the middle of the racetrack that I think if someone wanted to, if they could get someone to go with them, they could force it 3 wide, put those guys up on the racetrack, and we know traditionally the top groove does not work very well here.
Yeah, I was actually just about to mention that. Someone needs to mix these 4 trucks out in front and get amongst it. I think Patterson's going to be the one to do so. He's been looking for that middle groove, but no one's going to go with him. He just needs to get that groove, put the truck in between the 4 and the 04, and just try and go with something like that, because if you leave these guys hooked up, they're just going to stay like this. They're not going to try. I think at this present point, I think it's either the 05 or the 5 that's going to head to victory lane. I don't think the 04 or the 4 is going to make a move. I think they're just going to sit side by side like this for the entire way, unless one of these guys behind mixes it up. As a 27, big sort of a check up there. Lost a lot of ground to this leading pack. Should be okay to get the draft back up, but the 3 out in front now on that low side, just trying to move that group a little bit further out in front.
We saw that last night in the Peak Antifreeze series where there was a lot of teammates hooked up near the front. You had Nick Ottinger, Schoenberg, as well as Michael Connie all really controlling the field, and they got the Chaos crew 1st, 2nd, and 4th for the new sponsor of Richmond International Raceways. But I completely agree with you. If you don't get up there and start shaking these guys up right here, right now, something is going to not go right for you. And like you said, it's either going to be the 5 or that 05 who end up coming down on towards victory lane, because no move is going to happen. So that said, who's it going to be who maybe starts jumping up top and trying to make a middle groove work, because those guys give a little bit of a pinch. And actually, that said, Jake, I like where they're running right now. I think if you're the 4 and the 5, until you get deep into this thing, you don't need to be nose ahead with your teammate Marshall Berry to control this field. You can just slot yourself right where you are right now and pin that 42 of Brad Patterson to the bottom. That might be the best play to make, is actually the front 2, they jump themselves to the top side of the racetrack. That's going to give the 42 of Patterson absolutely no help whatsoever, and I think everyone else is going to follow the American Motorsports guys. I think Patterson might have just gotten hung out to dry.
Patterson has got hung out to dry right now, and whether they're going to come down, they can't. But those 2 trucks that they passed were 2 low-line trucks. Everett F. Lane back to the front, we should say, in the 15. Just trying to find that name. Sean Malishik as well, because... Oh, slow truck on the high side of... Oh, it's always scary when you see a truck like that, especially how quickly they gained on them, because those 2 trucks that they passed, the 24 and the 15, like I was saying, they were actually half-decent trucks. So they actually made that draft a little bit easier for the 42 to get back up. They didn't do anything with it. Somehow American Motorsports still get the 2 trucks back to that low side, but Everett F. Lane... I don't want to see the 42 and the 24 near each other right now.
Yeah, I am 100% with you on that one, as they are nose to tail. Everett F. Lane is currently scored as 1 lap down, right on the rear tailgate of that 42 machine. That said, I certainly, well, if anything were to happen, I hope Everett's at least smart enough to spin Brad down the track rather than up it and into traffic. But that said, Marshall Berry back to controlling. I think I would have liked right there, though, the American Motorsports guys maybe linking themselves up and trying to use that bit of pandemonium with the lap cars, Jake, to maybe stretch a bit of an opening for themselves. That said, they get themselves back double file, a bit of contact. The 42, and I think the 4 made a little bit of a touch, as they both, the 42 went up and the 4 came down just a little bit. They both just sort of got together, as the 4 now gives a big head of steam to Brandon Holder. Let's see, is Brandon going to duck down? No, he's not. And there's now a few trucks who have popped up to this top line, and now it's not just American Motorsports up there. You have Sean Reinchild, whose name I will eventually learn to pronounce, Sean Powell, as well as Frank Gamuglia.
we'll figure out all the names once the season gets on. I think we got 35 races to figure it out. We'll get there by the last one with Berry now and Holder. But yeah, those two behind Scott Ryan, Shield, Sean Powell, those two are teammates as well. So those guys should be able to try and do something with it. Wrigley behind us. There goes the 2 and 6 once again on the high side. But the 42 and the 24, they were beating on each other down this backstretch before. The 24 once again all over the back of that 42. I don't think he's going to hold it up. Whether he's sort of seen it or whether he knows what happened or whatnot, and go from there. But hopefully nothing happens between the two. I think they should be okay, because right now that could be only Brad Patterson's hope. Unfortunately, it may be not who we want to have behind him after what's happened earlier on in this race. Is another truck just sort of running that middle groove that they're going to come up. They're going to get by him. James Hickson on that high side left a little bit of room between the wall, but could have maybe moved a little bit higher than I thought. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see how those two players right now. Definitely Brandon Holder and Jimmy Longmore Jr. trying to make moves on that high side right now.
Trying to be a little aggressive. They're fanning out 3 wide as they're dealing with some more lap traffic, I believe. That's Matt Kingsbury. He's running 17th, and he's going to be going down, I believe, another lap here in that 21 truck. So that said, they all run through 3 and 4. They're coming up on a very slow Paul Bliss, who needs to be very, very aware of what's happening. I think Paul needs to try to duck down to the apron here. That's exactly what he's going to do, so that's well played. That's what I was going to say that a lot of these slow trucks need to do, Jake. They're running so far off pace. The 85 only hitting 160 out there by himself, and he's not the only one. I'm not just ripping on Paul, but it's just one of those situations where instead of, if you're that far off pace, it just ruins the pacing and the tempo of everyone, because when you deal with lap traffic normally, you sort of have a tempo of how quickly you expect them to be going. When they're that slow, it's just the sort of situation of you need to make something happen. As that said, Brandon Holder, he's ducked down and taking the race lead in the 42 of Patterson. He's nosed into the middle. He's got no drafting help, though, and we're going to be 3 wide into 3 and 4 in the third. 42 machine gets moved down the racetrack. 24 is upside down in 3 and 4. Caution flies. Big issue as they were 3 wide at the end of the back straightaway.
Big issues, 3 wide into turn 3. Did not go this time round, and that's pretty much everyone involved besides American Motorsports. I should say American Motorsports truck was involved initially, but a lot of damaged race trucks out there, and it didn't take long, and that was what Patterson had to do. He had to try and split up those 4 trucks out in front. He tried to do so. He went to the middle. The lap truck that was on the high side, 4 wide, was not going to work, and that was it. That was all she wrote. The 4 and the 42 got together. The 24 getting a big shunt into the outside wall, and that was sort of what he had to do, really. It's unfortunate that it came to that way, but he had to do it. Someone had to do it.
See it in a few different ways, I think, because I agree that someone had to try to divide those guys up. But at the same time, I think the timing couldn't have been any worse for Brad Patterson. I think that's a little ill-advised, jumping up into that and forcing guys into that 3rd lane when you're coming up on a lap car that's 20 miles an hour down. I understand the logic is to try to get people to lift, and maybe you pick up a handful of spots and break that up. I understand the strategy, but just seems to me that no matter what happens, it's going to cause an incident. And at the end of the day, to win a Daytona race, you need friends, and even if everyone gets through that clean, I don't think anyone would come out with that saying, hey, Brad Patterson did a really nice thing for everybody. I think that when push came to shove, coming to the checkers, if that 42 is in a position to win, someone would go with somebody else. And now we're talking a situation. Do we have any trucks left that aren't American Motorsports?
I was about to say the same thing. It definitely was American Motorsports, and I agree with you on that, on those points as well, Randy. It's whether he knew there was a lap truck coming up as well, it's sort of one of those things, like, he had to do that move and he had to sort of make it within 15 to go, so I understand why he went there. But whether he knew there was that lap truck, unsure, but if he did, then yeah, he was trying to use it as a pick, and obviously those guys aren't going to check up. It's a what, 30 mile an hour speed difference. You're not going to check up that much in that time. You're just going to cause more trouble than not. So I think it was one of those situations. He did have the inside clear. He could have moved back down into his line and left it at that. But you can see both sides of the story. I just think it was push come to shove at the end of the race and trying to get it done, couldn't get it done, and it caused a massive incident, and pretty much everyone behind the American Motorsport trucks got involved. So I just reckon you just put your money on a 5 or 05 and see what happens.
That said, at the same point, you can't all put it on Brad, because I do think there's a little bit of a maybe institutional failure there when you talk about the fact that all these plate races we've done for this championship for a while now, we've had issues with those slow. Whenever we get one of these plate races and there's a big incident, there's always those trucks that are 30 to 40 miles per hour down. I know the series doesn't use live admins. Generally, occasionally you'll see Matt Holden come in and help out every so often, but if I were to make a rule change, I think making something that upon post-race review, if you're out there and that far off the pace around these big plate tracks, 30 to 40 miles an hour down, I think that basically needs to come with a penalty post-race. Even if it has to come from a post-race review, that'll make the drivers get out there and they'll look at you can run a couple laps, analyze your speed. That's fair enough. That's fair play. But if you're not maintaining minimum speed, you basically need to just get off the racetrack, because you're just a hazard to everyone who's out there potentially being competitive.
And I agree, and it's so early in the season to be running. If there was a race before the chase and you needed a couple of points to make it, I totally understand on that. But to run around first race of the championship some slow, I think that was a little bit. It was going to happen. There was going to be somewhere lap truck was going to come and they 3 wide like we just saw, and 4 wide definitely doesn't work. This is not Talladega times 2 wide. It's not going to work. It's just wasn't going to happen. So at the moment, looks like the American Motorsports trucks though out in front. I think Logwood Jr. is clean behind them. Jocelyn's got a clean race truck. Oh, as I say that, a little bit of a dent to the rear end, so I can't really say it's clean. Tim Marlowe somehow put himself up onto the lead lap as the 28 of Tim Marlowe up there.
Hayes too.
Yeah, it's Hayes as well. As Hugo's had a little bit of malfunction in the commentary booth, but hopefully Hugo is okay.
Quote Hugo, he said he's dropped Pepsi all over himself, so I suspect that Britney Spears is going to have a lawsuit coming her way for all the advertising she did for that beverage company in the 90s and early 2000s. That's beside the point. As pace car rolls, and we're going to be getting back to green here, Jake, with about, I think, 13 or 14 laps remaining in this thing, and I don't know how, somehow, some way, Adam Jocelyn, Tim Marlowe, and Tyler Hayes have to find some way of breaking up the top 4 of Holder, Barry, Ryan, and Logwood that are all teammates. I don't know how those 3 do it, considering I don't think they've been hooked up all night. They've been in the back of the field all night, and a couple of those trucks have damage.
I don't know. May as well just bring all 4 American Motorsports up into the commentary booth and have them as a joint interview at the end of this race, because it's looking like that's going to be, as the lights are out on the pace car, start to double them up for roughly 13 odd laps to go, pardon me. So I think that, yeah, someone's got to do something now. Whether those trucks have anything for them, though, I don't think so. The 28 has been strong. We saw it when the guys were a lap down and lapping him. He was very strong on pace, but I don't think he has anything for him.
Only thing I can think, Jake, the only hope that we have for American Motorsports truck not winning this race is if they're one of those groups that's like, all right, absolutely no team orders, white flag flies, it's every man for themselves, and they somehow end up wrecking everybody. That's the only hope. That's the only thing I can see.
You think they might do? I'm
not saying whether or not I think they could. Yeah, I'd be pretty entertained to see them all throw the race win away too. That would be pretty good.
I'd like to see them race for it though. Like sitting obviously Holden or Marshall, Holden or Barry, sorry, are gonna like be out in front. Maybe one of those 2 are gonna be victory lane, but I hope they do just say white flag. Let's just have at it. Like if the 4 or the 04 get a run, make it happen. Try and do it cleanly and fairly. That's what you always want in a team situation. You want it to be clean, you want it to be fair, and you'd rather not wreck one of your teammates' trucks.
So they come off of corner number 4. Lights are out on that iRacing safety car. Are we going to finish this thing under green? I'm going to say probably not, as we're just over 10 laps to go. Pace car on towards pit road. 13 laps left in the Dark Matter Design 300, and we are back to green flag racing as they run through the tri-oval and down the second short chute in towards corner number 1.
Good jump from the inside, a Holder as well as Sean M. Ryan. Right behind him, they made a good move as Tim Marlowe makes an aggressive move from the high side down to the low side in front of Adam Jocelyn. But I don't think he has any draft partners, but he's been able to get to the inside of Timmy Logwood Jr., and that's going to help him try and maybe split this group up. But right now,
oh, wreck in the back. We're going to have a yellow, I think. Big incident in the back. Couple cars loose and around, but we're going to stay green. Once again, we dodge a caution.
How we are dodging cautions, I will never know. Yeah,
33
okay.
McQueen.
How we dodged that one, I will never know. Got bumper hooked off of 2. There was Jameson came to a complete stop, but no caution out there on the racetrack and back out in front. And now 3 trucks, the low line and the high line, going to see what they can do. But right now it's still American Motorsports 1, 2, 3, 4.
Controlling the front of the top 2 lanes are all the teammates as we somehow stay green, closing in on 10 laps to go. Couple drivers hobbling down on the bottom just a little bit. 78 of Adam Jocelyn. He's become the 5th American Motorsports member, so to speak, as Marshall Berry's going to get a big push, and they're going to be 3 wide again. I think that's a big mistake from the Ford truck of Timmy Logwood Jr. He tried to control the gap. He wanted to keep those guys out in front and control the outer lane. American Motorsports somehow, some way, have potentially thrown this away, as now they just control 3 of the top 4 spots, and maybe even less than that if they come across the timing beam.
And there goes Tim Marlowe to the high side. I was going to see whether he was going to do it, and he did it now. That actually moves Marshall Berry to the low side. They're going to leave Tim Marlowe out to dry. Is Jocelyn going to try and do something? No, they're not. So Tim Marlowe's not able to do anything. No help out there on the high side. Now it's 1, 2, 3 for American Motorsports. The 04, Sean and Brian, all over the back of Brandon Holder. He knows that they have to push now. They have to try and get this win after pretty much dominating most of this race. They got to make sure one of their trucks, end up in victory lane.
And what I'm a little bit surprised here, Jake, is that you guys haven't gotten back up on the racetrack, up on the top side, and started working together. Because Marshall Berry, he currently sits in the 3rd spot, and just a couple rows back, you have that last American Motorsports driver of Logwood Jr. It wouldn't take much for those 2 to get hooked up. And considering the way they've dominated this race is by controlling both lanes of the 4 machines around, I think we might avoid another caution as he was down on the apron. He's not come to a stop yet. Waiting. We're still green. Logwood Jr., 4 machine, he goes to the back.
Got bumper hooked from the 78 of Adam Jocelyn was what it looked like going through. Actually, no, it was the 28, sorry, of Tim Marlowe. He went high. Marlowe had a run. Oh, okay. It's similar to what happened between Everett F. Lane and Brad Patterson, but I think that one was worse for Tim Marlowe. There was no hole there. He was sort of 2 tires below that yellow line at the time, but still green out the racetrack. But Jocelyn's lost any form of hope. He's got no one behind him in terms of drafting partners, and that may be day done. And it could be 3 American Motorsports ending up 1, 2, 3.
Not done quite yet. He can still hope for a caution, and look what's happened here is out in front. The 3 American Motorsports drivers, Holder, Ryan, and Berry. That little incident shook this entire lead up. Tyler Hayes has lost that group. Tim Marlowe has lost that group. And Adam Jocelyn has no help as well. Those 3 are pretty much clear to just push each other. I think right now, if you're the top 3, don't be patient. Hook yourself up. Somehow, some way, turn this into a 3-truck tandem and push your way away from Adam Jocelyn, and you all but guarantee that one of you win this race.
That's what they're doing, and that's what American Motorsports are trying to sort out right now. Last time round, definitely gaining half a second on Adam Jocelyn. I think they've got this sealed and done. They just need to make sure that they can try and sort of keep themselves together at the moment. They got round Glenn Jameson on the high side. I think this, whether they try and manufacture whoever's going to win this race, we'll soon find out. But right now, the 3 trucks nose to tail. Whether it's boys have at it at the end, we'll soon find out. But coming down 8 laps to go, or 7.5 now, as it comes down into 3 and 4, and the 5, good shove from the 04 of Sean M. Ryan. Maybe trying to get a little bit of a gap on Marshall Berry. Berry's just hanging back just a little bit, but they've dropped off all but Adam Jocelyn.
7 laps to go, and these drivers have come from all over the place in this grid. 6th and 4th for Berry and Holder. So row 2 and row 3 on the starting grid. Sean Ryan, who sits 2nd, he came from 25th. And just out of curiosity, where did that last American Motorsports driver come from? That was Timmy Longwood Jr. He rolled off for this one in 16th, and he was up at the front at one point as well, but he just got bumper hooked and is well down the order. No longer a factor, unfortunately, for him. But a number of drivers still as well, as Adam Jocelyn's come from 24th to 4th, and 2 drivers coming from outside the top 30 to get themselves into the top 6. So a lot of movers, despite all the pandemonium in the mid-pack today.
yeah, despite everything that's going on, still a lot of people have been able to save their trucks and get to the end. Marlowe now trying to push Tyler Hayes. They're 5 seconds off from the race lead, but I don't think they can do anything about that at the moment. 3 seconds now with Adam Jocelyn behind that pact, and another 7/10 for those two running in 5th and 6th. So I don't think they're going to have anything for these guys out in front. And whether they do anything right now, would you try and just stay single file? Obviously you would stay single file, but it comes down to 2 to go. Randy, would you try and maybe jump on your teammates or just leave it as is? I think you just got to leave it.
I don't think they have any reason to leave it. I think for these guys, they have more than enough reason to go for it, because the top 3 separated, you know, they're all nose to tail. Adam Jocelyn has fallen 3 seconds. It's going to be even more than that, probably close to 4 off this race lead, and it's going to be 5 laps to go. So every subsequent lap around the racetrack, they're going to open up that gap more and more and more. I think if you're these top 3, you have no reason not to really race it to the checker. It's now nearly over 6 seconds.
Yeah. And that gap's going out. Actually, they wrecked Tyler Hayes, and that's Adam Jocelyn, the 78. Both of them around, still no caution. So Tyler Hayes having a look at the back at this one. Hayes tried to go high, then got hooked from the 28 into the 78, and around they went. None of them made contact with the wall, but both of them lost out on that one. Ryan Lang still hasn't been able to gain a position, so no positions lost as of yet. Tyler Hayes is actually still slow, just trying to get back up to speed on the backstretch, but another crash. No caution as the guys come across the stripe. The trio now definitely can start to race at it, because they're good on 20-odd seconds in front.
You know, it's an interesting Daytona race when someone can get spun from 4th and only drop 1 spot.
you know, there's a lot of damaged trucks out there as well. As Marlowe only 8 seconds back in 4th position at the moment, as the leading trio pass a couple of trucks that are lapped down. But yeah, 8 seconds back is Tim Marlowe all by himself. Jocelyn 18 seconds back, and then Ryan Lang's managed to just get around Tyler Hayes for 6th position. So managed to do something with that. But now we're back to the front, coming off of turn number 4, Randy, and they're going to be 3 to go.
The 7.5 miles for American Motorsports to lock out the podium. The season opener, as they work themselves down the first of the short chutes and in towards 1 and 2. And this is basically going to be line of stern. Gap to Tim Marlowe in 4th is going to be probably pushing about 10 seconds or so on the racetrack. 11, in fact. So top 3, pretty much no worry for them at all behind. And I think at some point these guys, they start fighting out between them, between Holder, Ryan, and Barry. You mentioned here, Jake, about maybe manufacturing one of these finishes of, okay, which one of our drivers do we want to put out in front? When you're thinking about the people who are competitive in this series, I mean, Marshall Berry, he's a little bit of a dark horse. He's a rookie. We don't know as much about him. Sean Ryan, he was decent last year, but he didn't quite have the speed that likes of Holder did. I honestly think that when it comes to the finish, as we're now at 2 to go, I honestly think they need to push the 04 or the 5, or excuse me, the 04 or the 05 out to the victory here to get them locked in.
I agree. I think Holder needs to drop back. I know Holder can easily get a victory later on in the season. We know he can drive that racetrack at
He won the season opener last season, right?
Yes, he did. So we know he can get it down on plate tracks. We know he won the first 3 races or whatever it was. He won the Clash and then won the first 2 rounds of the championship last season. We know he can actually get the job done. Whether he lets one of these teammates steal another Daytona 300 victory away from him, we'll soon find out. White flag in the starter's hand, and the 3 American Motorsports trucks. It's all to play for.
2.5 miles left in the Dark Matter Designs 300 here in the Espeed Contender Series. Couple lap cars down on the bottom. No big issue for these guys. And let's see what's going to happen as Sean Ryan, he's going to drop a little bit out of line, but going to be Brandon Holder who cuts it back down and in. So let's see if this trio is going to make these interesting down the super stretch. Is one of them going to duck out? It's Brandon Holder going to give the win to one of these other guys, or are they going to stay line of stern? That's the big question. Through 3 and 4 for the final time, and they're mostly single file, but that said, there's a bit of blocking and a bit of jockeying as Sean Ryan goes down low. He gives the 5 attach of Brandon Holder. Is he going to be even more aggressive here? He looks to try to get down to the bottom of the battle lane there, but Brandon Holder, I think, is going to win the season opener for 2 seasons running in the Espeed Contender Series as the 04 Sean Ryan slots into 2nd.
Good drive drop from one of those boys down in front. Nearly bumper hooked the 5 through 3 and 4, but rolled out of it. settled himself back down, did Sean O'Brien, and then tried to have another crack at it coming to the stripe, but was too late from then on. Gonna have to settle with second fiddle to Brandon Holder, who once again takes out the opening round of the championship. Marshall Berry, rookies of this championship, rookies of the team, comes home in third. Marlowe ending up in P number 4, and Adam Jocelyn rounding out the top 5 at the moment. But great drive from American Motorsports. They pretty much dominated that one, Randy.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only way to describe it. They got themselves up front and they were dominant. Top 3, they're going to cycle themselves through across the line once again, and I think we're going to see this entire group do some donuts, as there's a couple damaged cars out there that are going to do donuts for some reason. Maybe they're happy that the engines didn't pop, or who knows what the deal is, but you see a lot of cars coming to a stop now on the apron and getting ready to burn them down, likes of Holder, Ryan, and Barry, and I'm sure they're going to be joined by Lockwood Jr. in the 4. That's exactly what's happening. 4 trucks in the top 8, 3 of them in the top 3. That's a very, very excited American Motorsports down there near the exit of pit road.
Yeah, very excited group of people, individuals there, and they deserved it. They had start trucks all night, and to have all 4 of them pretty much at one stage, 1, 2, 3, 4 for most of this race, looked like they could have had the job done, but unfortunately a little bit of another bumper hook to Timmy Lockwood Jr. ended his day, but now Brandon Holder, 2-time Daytona 300 winner.
So these guys burn them down, and let's hope that Hugo's not too sticky to cue the music. We're going to go down your post-race results from the Dark Matter Designs 300 here at Daytona. Brandon Holder takes the big win for the 2nd season running, and he had a big opening weekend, getting a good finish in his qualifier race as well to start 6th tonight. Sean Ryan, 25th up to 2nd, and Marshall Berry, the American Motorsports teammates, to lock out the podium tonight. Tim Marlowe finishes in 4th. Adam Jocelyn finishes in the 5th position. Ryan Lang in 6th. Tyler Hayes 7th, and Timmy Lockwood Jr., he's going to come home in the 8th spot. Sean Powell, as well as Brent Keith, rounding out your top 10. William Toney in 11th, Matt Kingsbury, John Verga, Doug Lemons, Burt Wilson, Glenn Jameson, Abe Bowden, Doc Stout, Aaron Ames, and Frank Gramuglia round out your top 20, with Tim McQueen, Bobby Everhart, Brad Patterson, Scotty Reinshield, and Everett F. Lane rounding out the top 25. Rest of your results cycling through on your screen in just a moment. Don't go away, as we will have post-race coverage coming at you in just a moment.
So obviously you guys have come from the virtual world to reality. What do you think about a sim racer coming in the real world? What were your expectations coming in?
Coming from iRacing, you know, a computer program basically down here to a real world scenario where you got all these guys with all these years and years and years and years of experience that are also using iRacing as a tool to come out and run against those guys and beat them and finish ahead of them and show them, you know, there's a thing or two you might be missing is fantastic. You know, I mean, that's a skill that I know I don't have, and I can appreciate it because I'm terrible at iRacing.
Glenn was able to come into the team. We did a lot of preseason testing, actually a full season's worth of testing before we even started the season. And he came in, there was a lot of sectors that he was the fastest guy out of our team. And Sparky and I looking at data, trying to catch up to him through some turns. And of course, you know, some places Sparky will be the fastest or I'll be the fastest, and Glenn is able to learn from, you know, what we're doing, and vice versa. So it was excellent to see his pace right off of the bat, and speed was never a worry. You know, it's about qualifying well. Qualifying is very difficult, you know, and pretty important in this series. And so is, you know, being able to make effective passes without contact. It's very difficult to pass in these cars, so, you know, it's not easy being here.
I think the level of ultra competitiveness in here, where when normally when you make a pass, you're making a pass with 2 cars involved. But if we're making a pass in this series, you have to remember there's 5 cars waiting behind you. If you mess up that pass, they're going by you.
Yeah, it's like sharks.
Yeah, you're surrounded by sharks. But no, it's been I've been very surprised and very pleased with it. And obviously I have the 2 champions I'm sitting between. John actually statistically is the most successful MX-5 Cup driver in the world. He owns every record that you would want, none of the bad records.
Maybe some of them, I don't know.
Maybe some of those. And Sparky's one of the quickest guys in the paddock, and you know, obviously the champion now. So I couldn't have picked a better team to be with Six Sideways. I'm looking at what everybody in the paddock calls gold. I mean, they will pay to look at John and Sparky's data, and I get full access to it. And I get to see where I'm doing well and see where I can improve. And I've been really pleased with my progress.
Welcome back to RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live, as post-race coverage is coming at you from Dark Matter Designs 300, live from Daytona for the Espeed Contender Series. And well, let's just get right to it. Let's get to the sponsor of tonight, Mr. Brad Patterson. He comes up into the booth. And well, Brad, is an entertaining race. What do you got to say to the race winner tonight of Brandon Holder?
Brandon, congratulations on a great race. Congratulations on being a two-time champion here at Daytona, and a great way to kick off your season.
I appreciate it, Brad. Thanks,
Go ahead, Brandon.
No, go ahead, Randy.
Thanks for joining us, Brad. I was just going to say you almost had a good night tonight, but things didn't quite pan out. Good luck to you next week.
Thanks, sir.
And now we are going to do things a little bit differently for this one, Brandon. Because you guys locked out the podium, it's going to be a mob interview for American Motorsports. But I will start it out with you, Brandon. Big win. You make it 2 in a row for the season opener, is getting away with a win. How does that feel in that 5 truck?
Man, it feels great. I was telling the team, man, it couldn't have been scripted any better. We all run a flawless race. Timmy got caught up there in the end. Hated to see that. But, man, it was a really good race.
Now, let's just move it on. Let's see. This one I'll target to the 05 of Marshall Berry. Marshall, you started in the 4th spot. You and Brandon were pretty much hooked up early. We saw you guys all drop out and get out of line. You picked up Sean Ryan, as well as, of course, Mr. Logwood Jr., who are a little bit deeper down the field. And then you made a hard charge back to the front to reel in that lead group. How confident did you think you were that you guys would be able to dominate this race like this? I know you likely thought you were in a good spot, but did you realize you're going to be able to do what you did tonight?
I mean, we were strong all week. Trucks were quick. You know, in the pack together, we could pretty much do whatever we wanted. And we were tough all week.
I guess the last person is Mr. Sean Ryan. Sean, you're the one who qualified that deep down the order from all of these drivers at American Motorsports, but you got yourself hooked up. Knowing that you were sort of the odd man out, being outside the top 20, especially with Brandon and Marshall being nose to tail right from the drop of the green flag, how confident were you that you'd be able to get hooked up with your teammates?
Well, I definitely knew we had the trucks under us. I mean, we've been strong all week. We were strong all last week practicing. We put a lot of work in these trucks in the last few weeks, so we definitely had the speed. It was just a matter of getting through any wrecks or getting through traffic. Which, lucky for us, we were able to pull it off.
Jake, anything for the top 3?
Yeah, great race, boys. I have to say, you guys definitely manufactured that one well. I'm going to chuck it to Brandon Holder for this one. Was there, even though I know you won the race, but was there any thinking of maybe, we know you can win races, we've seen you do it before. Obviously, Marshall Berry being new to the series, we don't know how well you're going to drive. Sorry, Marshall, but we'll learn you soon. And obviously, Sean and Ryan can be strong as well and get victories. Was there any way that you guys are maybe thinking about manufacturing that one, Brandon, at the end, to maybe put one of the other guys, get that win to sort of solidify themselves early on?
No, we don't do team orders. We talked about that last night in the duels. I mean, we had a real great race, and I mean, if it comes to giving someone a lap back or something like that, we're fine with that, but we're not going to do team orders like that.
It's good to hear. At least you guys are still having at it at the end. But well done, boys, I have to say from myself. That was a very good job as a team perspective to get that job done tonight. Unfortunately, obviously, what happened to Timmy Logwood Jr., but brilliant drive from all 3 of you out front.
Thanks for joining us, Top Trio. Before we let you go, one of you nominate a representative, and you run down the sponsors. It gets it done for all of you guys.
Well, we'd like to thank Sim Racing Apps. They come on board this year and people in the iRacing community really need to check them out. They have some amazing apps, and the best part about it, it's free. All the work that is done to that, just amazing, and the helpfulness of the, knowing when you're going to run out of fuel, where everyone is. It's just a great app. We'd also like to thank pitboxes.com and Barry Family Racing. Marshall, he runs a dirt street stock, and he's come on board with us this year, and really appreciate the support. Appreciate the viewers on YouTube and RaceSpot. Y'all do an awesome job.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Good luck to you guys all running out next week when we head to Atlanta.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
No problem. Moving on down the line. 4th place finisher tonight, 28 machine of Tim Marlowe. Jake, you're stood trackside with him.
Yeah, I'm going to be stood by with the 28 of Tim Marlowe, and Tim struggled early on, a lap down, got that lap back though, managed to put yourself in a position at the end to try and do something about it. Didn't end up being your way, ended up 17 seconds off the pace, but that was a crazy one, especially from your point of view.
Yeah, I was happy to finish where I did. I got that lucky dog, and I just battled off. The whole plan was initially just to fall off the pack and let them go, and then I had an issue partway through the race. I couldn't figure out why I wasn't keeping up with them. I had like 0.4 of a second damage. Looked down, my brake had one little red light at the bottom. I was dragging my brake and didn't know it. And once I fixed that, it's like I picked up almost a second a lap. So that made the big difference right there once I figured out what was the problem.
Yeah, definitely looked like you gained some speed in that later stage of the run. The truck looked really fast, and it looked like you were able to do it, especially when you actually initially got lapped and you then were on that high side by yourself. But couple little incidents early in that later stages. It sort of was the going of the night. It was one of those things where everyone was just coming back, letting the rust sort of go off, because there was a lot of incidents that looked very just unusual for this series.
Yeah, I didn't mean to get into Timmy there. We got in there, and I thought it was there, and he kind of come down a little bit too quick, which I shouldn't have been on there. I wasn't thinking about there being 4 America's Motorsports I was trying to battle with. And I got in front of 2 of them and didn't think about it. They wasn't going to help me push me past their teammates, so that kind of caused me to get shuffled right on back and tried to go back up through there. And then I got Timmy, and I was like, man, I hated doing that. And then I was trying to cool it off when I got below the other guy there, and the rookie, I can't think of his name right off the hand, and I tried to cool it off in between them, and I caught his left rear and got him and Adam Jocelyn and messed them up too. So hated that.
Yeah, it's just one of those nights, especially for yourself. But obviously, heading into the rest of the series, we know you can drive this race truck. Hopefully, you don't hit a wall on the right-hand side of the truck to pancake into your trucks this season. I'm just going to say it from now on out. But obviously, Atlanta, Vegas, a couple of good tracks that we know you're going to be quick at. Rockingham as well. So you got a good little stretch here. You might be able to rebound, but it's still a good start to the season coming home in 4th.
Yeah, thanks.
Any shout-outs, though? Any sponsors that you'd like to give a shout-out to before we let you go?
I want to thank my new sponsor, Flair Printing, etc. Same sponsor from last year, but it's his wife's company now. So we took on him, put her on board, and still trying to get the little light paint jobs. Having issues trying to get my wheels to pop the right color, and there's something going on with iRacing. I need to get in touch with them, but I want to thank her for all her help that they do and getting that sponsorship on here. And I want to thank Dark Motorsports for the sponsorship of this race and everything y'all do, and Keith Stewart, everything he does. I still like the league, and hopefully this is going to be a tough season. It's got a lot of competition, keeps getting bigger and bigger here.
It's going to be a long season. That's definitely going to be the aim of the game today for the rest of this season. But well done, Tim. Strong, solid result for the first round of the championship, the Espeed Contender Series, and hopefully you can have a good one next week at Atlanta.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, and that was 4th place, Tim Marlowe, in that 28 truck. And now I'll chuck it over to Randy with our final interviewee of today, Adam Jocelyn, in that 78.
Yeah, I'm stood by with Adam Jocelyn in that 78 car. Adam, you're someone we talked about a lot of the day, but at the same time, he's someone who was just sort of there. You went from 24th to 5th, where there's so much focus on those American Motorsports guys that it was really them, and of course the 42 of Patterson, who was involved in a lot of drama tonight, who we were really talking about. How's your drive in that 78 truck to be able to get yourself from 24th up to 5th?
Might have helped if we moved him into the booth. Now talk to him, Randy.
I thought we moved him into the booth. Shout outs to Jake Blackhall for not knowing how to use the TeamSpeak administrator controls. But Adam, you're not someone we talked much about over the course of this. We were so focused on the quartet of American Motorsports out in front and 42 of Patterson getting himself into some drama a few times over the course of this thing that you sort of quietly lurked there in that lead group for a while. You got yourself from 24th up to 5th at a big plate track with a lot of pandemonium. You have to be happy about that.
I'm ecstatic. I crashed in the class the other night. I crashed in the duel last night, and tonight I decided I'm just going to go to the back and let him wreck, and just kept dodging wreck after wreck after wreck, and finally got up here.
We head to Atlanta next week. Of course, it's the plate track. You can't really take much away from that. A lot of new names in this championship and a lot of big names, even though they're labeled as quote-unquote rookies. Is there any of the new guys that you got your eye on for who might be strong this season?
Yeah, most of the rookie guys, they're pretty quick. They're going to be tough, but our Full Throttle Motorsports is going to put in a lot of work, and hopefully we can be up there.
Good luck to you this season, Adam, and congratulations on starting this championship out strong. Before we let you go, who gets it done for you on the 78?
Oh, I got to thank Full Throttle Motorsports. I just got with them last week. I'm pretty excited about this season. I see a lot of good things happening. Done a lot of testing, and I'm looking forward to it. I got to thank Austin Designs. He was going to partner. He partnered with me when I was going to go solo, and I came over here and I said, "Hey, why don't you come over, provide paint schemes?" So he check him out on Facebook, Austin Designs, JAB Productions, Full Throttle Motorsports. I got to thank Espeed for the series, and this is fun.
Thanks again, of course, as always, Adam, and congratulations once again. Good luck next week in Georgia.
Thank you.
Well, Jake, it was an interesting Dark Matter Designs 300 around this Daytona racetrack. It was drama up and down the field. I have to say, though, there's not really anything you can really take away from this other than, oh, Lord, hopefully the next plate race doesn't go like this.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't go like this, and thankfully we have a couple of tracks in between that before we get to another one. But all we know is American Motorsports, they're still strong. It's sort of going to be one of those things to see how strong they can be now. Obviously, Brandon Holder, we know he's going to be fast everywhere. Don't know Marshall Berry, but Sean M. Ryan and Timmy Logwood Jr., they were up there. They started to get a little bit more speed towards the end of the season. Whether they can bounce on that for this season now. Next week at Atlanta, that's going to be a crazy one. They actually sponsor the event as well, so American Motorsports truck in victory lane might be a little bit awkward having an interview himself, but it'll be interesting to see how they go at Atlanta. But Townsend's back. He may have been involved in an incident, but I wouldn't count him out next week either.
Of the new guys, I'm going to put you on the spot, Jake. Of the new people, the class for Espeed 2018, who do you have your eye on?
There's
okay.
a lot of new.
You can take the easy answer of Malik Ray.
Well, I actually wasn't, and no offense to Malik, I know he's super fast.
Is it Malik?
Malik. I'd say he will tell us and sort us out later on. But I'm gonna actually go with Marshall Berry. He's got a good team around him, and that's what can be make or break, especially in this series. I know a lot of the rookies went together in that Aero Refinement group that's got Malik Ray, Sean Powell, who had a really strong night tonight as well. So wouldn't surprise me if those guys sort of do well. But I just think Barry's got very experienced guys around him in this series that he might be able to shine a little bit if he can get his head around it.
Well, a lot of new talent coming into this 2018 Espeed Contender Series that, as we've been saying, spans the entire year, as opposed to having a couple shorter championships over the course of this thing. But this is the first round, done and over with, done and dusted, and that is going to be it for us here on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. Join us in 7 days' time when this championship returns and we take these trucks to Atlanta, Georgia. If you want to see more stuff before then, tomorrow night, American Dirt Series returns with the super late models at Knoxville, and then Friday night is, of course, Friday Night Dirt Night, the penultimate season for the penultimate round for 2018 Season 1. You also have the SCO 10 Hours of Suzuka coming at you this weekend. A big handful of days here on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. So until then, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.